Okay. Okay, please tell me it works this time. Hello? Oh, thank God it works. Okay, time to and my hair is. Let's see, does this work? Not bad. Okay, so let me just put this off. Okay. Out my ass. Okay. Now I'm proper live. Yes, Punjat. Okay, let me see. Okay, okay. Everything is much better now. You guys can actually hear me, so that's really good. So I don't fix my coat. Have to wear the gloves. Just get this. Of course, my gloves get inside out. The hell was that? How the hell did I fuck up my glove? That's gonna have to work for now. So let's see. Okay. Fix mask. And I think I'm wearing it upside down, so god damn it. Okay. Um but either way, hello everybody, it is I, Mr. Jonny Wonka. And welcome to my first ever live stream. Now, uh for today, it's a hot day, so I have many drinks with me. Because it is hot. Uh I have to wear this because I'm doing the book reading and stuff. So here we have the original Roald Dahl Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Here we go. Have a good, nice, good look. And today I'm gonna be non-stop reading the entire chapter for all of you at home. Uh, so I'll just say it right away. Make sure to go get your bathroom breaks because I'm gonna be starting at 8:30. I think 8:30 is a good time to start. So go grab snacks, put on while you're doing dishes. Who knows? Just supposed to be a nice, fun time, everyone. And as I say, everyone, there's just one person. So let me just check everything out. Make sure everyone knows I'm doing this right now. Okay. I do that. Let me go to. Hmm. Oh, fuck. Oh, okay. Let's see. Does this. Can I look at this? Okay. Okay. Okay, so I think it is time. So for that, let us begin. Roald Dahl, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. There are 5 children in this book: Augustus Gloop, a greedy boy; Veruca Salt, a girl who is spoiled by her parents; Violet Beauregard, a girl who chews gum all day; Mike TV, a boy who does nothing but watch television; and Charlie Bucket, the hero. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Chapter 1. Here Comes Charlie. These two very old people are the father and mother of Mr. Bucket. Their names are Grandpa Joe and Grandma Josephine. And these two very old people are the father and mother of Mrs. Bucket. Their names are Grandpa George and Grandpa Georgina. This is Mr. Bucket. This is Mrs. Bucket. Mr. and Mrs. Bucket have a small boy whose name is Charlie Bucket. This is Charlie. How'd you do? And how you do? And how you do again? He's pleased to meet you. The whole the whole of this family, the 6 grown-ups, count them, and little Charlie Bucket lived together in a small wooden house on the edge of a great town. The house wasn't nearly large enough for them, for so many people, and life was extremely uncomfortable for them all. There were only 2 rooms in the place altogether, and there was only one bed. The bed was given to the 4 old grandparents because they were so old and tired. They were so tired they never got out of it. Grandpa Joe and Grandma Josephine on this side, and Grandpa George and Grandpa Georgina on this side. Mr. and Mrs. Bucket and little Charlie Bucket slept in the other room upon mattresses on the floor. In the summertime, this wasn't too bad, but in the winter, freezing cold drafts blew across the floor all night long, and it was awful. There wasn't any question of them being able to buy a better house, or even one with more bed to sleep in. They were far too poor for that. Mr. Bucket was the only person in the family with a job. He worked in a toothpaste factory where he sat all day long at a bench and screwed the little caps onto the tops of the tubes of toothpaste after the tubes had been filled. But a toothpaste cap screwer is never paid very much money. And poor Mr. Bucket, however hard he worked and however fast he screwed on the caps, was never able to make enough to buy one half of the things that so large a family needed. They weren't even enough money to buy proper food for them all. The only meals they could afford were bread and margarine for breakfast, boiled potatoes and cabbage for lunch, and, and cabbage soup for supper. Sundays were a bit better. They all looked forward to Sundays because then they had exactly the same. Everyone was allowed a second helping. The buckets, of course, didn't starve, but every one of them, the 2 old grandfathers and 2 old grandmothers, Charlie's father, Charlie's mother, and especially little Charlie himself, went about from morning till night with a horrible, empty feeling in their tummies. Charlie felt it worst of all. And although his father and mother often went without their own share of lunch or supper so that they could give it to him, it still wasn't nearly enough for a growing boy. He desperately wanted something more filling and satisfying than cabbage and cabbage soup. The one thing he longed for more than anything else was chocolate. Walking to school in the mornings, Charlie could see great slabs of chocolate pile up high in the shop windows, and he would stop and stare and press his nose against the glass, his mouth watering like mad. Many times a day, he would. Where was I? Many times a day, he would see other children talking creamy candy bars out of their pockets and munching them greedily, and that, of course, was pure torture. Only once a year on his birthday did Charlie Bucket ever get a taste a bit of chocolate. The whole family saved up their money for that special occasion, and when the great day arrived, Charlie always presented with one small chocolate bar to eat all by himself. And each time he received it, on those marvelous birthdays mornings, he would he would place it carefully in a small wooden box that he owned and treasure it though it were a bar of solid gold. And for the next few days he would allow himself only to look at it but never touch it. Then, at last, when he could stand it no longer, he would peel back a tiny bit of the paper wrapping at one corner to expose a tiny bit of chocolate, and then he would take a tiny nibble, just enough to allow the lovely sweet taste to spread out slowly over his tongue. The next day, he would take another tiny nibble, and so on, and so on. And this way, Charlie would make his 10-cent bar of birthday chocolate last for more than a month. But I haven't told you about the one awful thing that tortured little Charlie, the lover of chocolate, more than anything else. This thing, for him, was far, far worse than seeing slabs of chocolate in the shop windows or watching other children munching creamy candy bars right in front of him. It was the most terrible, torturing thing you could imagine. And it was this: in the town itself, actually within sight of the house in which Charlie lived, there was an enormous chocolate factory. Just imagine that! And it wasn't simply an ordinary enormous chocolate factory either. It was the largest and most famous in the whole world. It was Wonka's factory, owned by a man called Mr. Willy Wonka, the greatest inventor and maker of chocolates that there has ever been. What a tremendous, marvelous place it was. It was a huge, it had a huge iron gate leading to it, and a high wall surrounding it, and smoke bleaches from its chimneys. The strange whizzing sounds coming from deep inside and outside the walls for half a mile around in every direction. The air skimmed with the heavy, rich smell of melting chocolate. Twice a day, on his way to and from school, little Charlie Bucket had to walk right past the gates of the factory, and every time he went by, he would begin to walk very, very slowly, and he would hold his nose high in the air and take long, deep sniffs of the glorious chocolatey smell all around him. Oh, how he loved that smell, and oh, how he wished he could go inside the factory and see what it was like. Chapter 2: Mr. Willy Wonka's Factory. In the evenings, after he had finished his supper of watery cabbage soup, Charlie always went into the room of his four grandparents to listen to their stories, and then afterwards to say goodnight. Every one of these old people was over 90. They were shriveled as prunces and bony as skeletons, and throughout the day, until Charlie made his appearance, they lay huddled in their one bed, two at each end, with nightcaps to keep on their heads warm, dozing the time away with nothing to do. But as soon as they heard the door open and heard Charlie's voice saying, "Good evening, Grandpa Joe and Grandma Josephine and Grandpa George and Grandma Georgina," then all four of them would suddenly sit up and their old wrinkled faces would light up with smiles of pleasure. And the talking would begin, for they loved this little boy. He was the only bright thing in their lives, and his evening visits were something that they looked forward to all day long. Often Charlie's mother and father would come in as well and stand by the door listening to the stories that the old people told. And thus, for perhaps half an hour every night, this room would become a happy place, and the whole family would forget that it was hungry and poor. One evening, when Charlie in to see his grandparents, he said to them, "Is it really true? Wonka's chocolate factory is the biggest in the world?" "True?" cried all four of them at once. "Of course it's true! Good heavens! Didn't you know that? It's about 50 times as bigger as any other. And this Mr. Willy Wonka, really the caviest chocolate maker in the world?" "My dear boy," said Grandpa Joe, raising himself up a little higher on his pillow, "Mr. Willy Wonka is the most amazing, the most fantastic, the most extraordinary chocolate maker the world has ever seen. I thought everybody knew that." "I knew he was famous, Grandpa Joe, and I knew he was very clever." "Clever!" cried the old man. "He's more than that. He's a magician with chocolate. He can make anything he wants. Isn't that a fact, my dears?" The other three old people nodded their heads slowly up and down and said, "Absolutely true. Just as true as it can be." And Grandpa Joe said, "You mean to say I have never told you about Mr. Willy Wonka and his factory?" "Never," answered little Charlie. "Good heavens above! I don't know what the matter with me." "Will you tell me now, Grandpa Joe, please?" "I certainly will. Sit down beside me on the bed, and my dear, and listen carefully." Grandpa Joe was the oldest of the four grandparents. He was 96 and a half, and that is just about as old as anybody can be. Like like all extremely old people, he was delighted and weak. And throughout the day, he spoke very little. But in the evenings when Charlie and his beloved grandson was in the room, he seemed in some marvelous way to grow quite young again. All his tiredness fell away from him, and he became as eager and excited as a young boy. "Oh, what a man he is, this Mr. Willy Wonka!" cried Grandpa Joe. "Did you know Did you know, for example, that he has himself invented more than 200 new kinds of candy bars, each with a different center, each far sweeter and creamier and more delicious than any other chocolate factories can make?" "Perfectly true," cried Grandma Josephine. and he sends them all to all the four corners of the earth. Isn't that right, Grandpa Joe? It is, my dear, it is. And to all the kings and presidents of the world as well. But it isn't only candy bars that he makes. Oh dear me. No, he has some really fantastic innovations up his sleeve. Mr. Willy Wonka has. Did you know that he invented a way of making chocolate ice cream so it could stay cold for hours and hours without being in the icebox? You can even leave it lying in the sun all morning on a hot day and it wouldn't go runny. But that's impossible, said little Charlie, staring at his grandfather. Of course it's impossible, cried Grandpa Joe. It's completely absurd. But Mr. Wonka has done it. Quite right, the other agreed, nodding their heads. Mr. Wonka has done it. And then again, Grandpa Joe went on, speaking very slowly now, so that Charlie wouldn't miss a word. Mr. Willy Wonka can make marshmallows that taste of violets and rich caramels that change color every 10 seconds as you suck them, and little feathery sweets that melt away deliciously the moment you put them between your lips. He can make chewing gum that never loses its taste, and candy balloons that you can blow up to enormous sizes before you pop them with a pin and gobble them up. And by a most secret method, he can make lovely bluebirds' eggs with black spots on them, and when you put one of these in your mouth, it gradually gets smaller and smaller until suddenly there's nothing left except a tiny little pink surgery baby bird sitting on the top of your tongue. Grandpa Joe paused and ran the point of his tongue slowly over his lips. It makes my mouth water just thinking about it, he said. Mine too, said little Charlie. But please, go on. While they were talking, Mr. and Mrs. Bucket, Charlie's mother and father, had come quietly into the room, and now both were standing just inside the door, listening. Tell Charlie about the crazy Indian prince, said Grandma Josephine. He would like to hear that. You mean Prince Pondicherry? Said Grandpa Joe, and he began chuckling and laughing. Completely dotty, said Grandpa George. But very rich, said Grandpa Georgina. What did he do? Asked Charlie eagerly. Listen, said Grandpa Joe, and I'll tell you. Chapter 3, Mr. Wonka and the Indian Prince. Prince Pondicherry wrote a letter to Mr. Willy Wonka, said Grandpa Joe, and asked him to come all the way out to India and build him a colossal palace entirely out of chocolate. Did Mr. Wonka do it, Grandpa? He did indeed. And what a palace it was! It had 100 rooms, and everything was made out of either dark or light chocolate. The bricks were chocolate, and the cement holding them together was chocolate, and the windows were chocolate, and all the walls and ceilings were made of chocolate. So were the carpets, and the pictures, and the furniture, and the beds. And when you turn on the tap in the bathroom, hot chocolate came pouring out. When 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 it when it was all finished, Mr. Wonka said to the Prince Pondicherry, "I warn you, though it won't last very long, so you better start eating it right away." "Nonsense," said the Prince. "I am not going to eat my palace. I'm going to nib. I'm not. even going to nibble the staircases or lick the walls. I'm going to live in it. But Mr. Wonka was right, of course, because soon after this, there came a very hot day with a boiling sun, and the whole palace began to melt, and then it sank slowly to the ground. And the crazy prince, who was dozing in the living room at the time, woke up to find himself swimming around a huge brown sticky lake of chocolate. Little Charlie sat very still on the edge of the bed, staring at his grandfather. Charlie's face was bright and his eyes were stretched so wide you could see the whites all around. It is really all Is all of this really true? He asked. Or are you pulling my leg? It's true, cried all four of the old people at once. Of course it's true. Ask anyone you like, and I'll tell you something else that's true, said Grandpa Joe. And now he leaned closer to Charlie and lowered his voice to a soft secret whisper. Nobody ever comes out. Nobody ever comes out. Out of where? Asked Charlie. And nobody ever goes in. In where? Cried Charlie. Wonka's factory, of course. Grandpa, what do you mean? I mean, workers, Charlie. Workers. Workers? All factories, said Grandpa Joe, have workers steaming in and out of the gates in the mornings and evenings. Except Wonka's. Have you seen a single person going into that place or coming out? Little Charlie looked slowly around at each of the four old faces, one after another, and they all looked back at him. They were all friendly, smiling faces, but they were also quite serious. There were no signs of joking or leg pulling on any of them. Well, have you? Asked Grandpa Joe. I I really don't know, Grandpa, Charlie stammered. Whenever I walk past the factory, the gates seem to be closed. Exactly, Grandpa Joe said. But there must be people working there. Not people, Charlie. Not ordinary people, anyway. Then who? Cried Charlie. Ah, that's it, you see. That's another of Mr. Willy Wonka's cleverness. Charlie, dear, said Mrs. Bucket, called out from where she was standing. It's time for bed. That's enough for tonight. But, Mother, I must hear. Tomorrow, my darling. That's right, said Grandpa Joe. I'll tell you the rest of it tomorrow evening. Oh, fuck. Just go back. Let us continue. Chapter 4: The Secret Workers. The next evening, Grandpa Joe went on with his story. You see, Charlie, he said, not so very long ago, there used to be thousands of people working in Mr. Willy Wonka's factory. When one day, all of a sudden, Mr. Wonka had to ask every single one of them to leave to go home, never to come back. But why? Asked Charlie. Because of spies. Spies? Yes, all the other chocolate makers, you see, had begun to grow jealous of the wonderful candies that Mr. Wonka was making. And they started sending in spies to steal his secret recipes The spies took jobs in the Wonka's factory, pretending that they were ordinary workers. And while they were there, each one of them found out exactly how a certain special was made. And did they go back to their own factories to tell? Asked Charlie. They must have, answered Grandpa Joe, because soon after that, Vico Gruber's factory started making an ice cream that would never melt, even in the hottest of suns. Then, Mr. Prodno's factory came out with a chewing gum that never lost its flavor, however much you chewed it. And then Mr. Slugworth's factory began making candy balloons that you could blow up to huge sizes before pop them with a pin and gobble them up. And so on and so on. Said, and Mr. Willy Wonka tore his beard and shouted, "This is terrible! I shall be ruined! There are spies everywhere! I I shall I shall have to close the factory." But he didn't do that, Charlie said. Oh yes, he did. He he told all the workers that he was sorry, but they would have to go home. Then he shut the main gates and fastened them with a chain, and suddenly Wonka's giant chocolate factory became silent and deserted. The chimneys stopped smoking, the machines stopped whirring, and from then on, not a single chocolate or candy was made. Not a soul went in or out, and even Mr. Willy Wonka himself disappeared completely. Months and months went by, Grandpa Joe went on, but still the factory remained closed. And everyone said, "Poor Mr. Wonka. He was so nice, and he made such marvelous things. But he's finished now. It's all over." Then something astonishing happened. One day, early in the morning, thin columns of white smoke were seen to be coming out of the tops of the tall chimneys of the factory. People in town stopped and stared. "What's going on?" they cried. "Someone lit the furnaces. Mr. Wonka must be opening up again." They ran to the gates, expecting to see them wide open and Mr. Wonka standing there to welcome his workers back. But no, the great iron gates were still locked and chained as securely as ever, and Mr. Wonka was nowhere to be seen. "But the factory is working," the people shouted. "Listen, you can hear the machines. They're all whirling again. And you can smell the smell of melting chocolate in the air." Grandpa Joe leaned forward and laid a long, bony finger on Charlie's knee, and he said softly, but most mysterious of all, "Charlie, were the shadows in the windows of the factory. The people standing on the streets outside could see small, dark shadows moving about behind the frosted glass windows." "Shadows of whom?" said Charlie quite quickly. That's exactly what everybody else wanted to know. "The place is full of workers," the people shouted. "But nobody gone in. The gates are locked. It's crazy. Nobody ever comes out either." "But there was no question at all," said Grandpa Joe, "that the factory was running, and it's gone on running ever since for these last 10 years. What's more, the chocolate and candies it's been turning out have become more fantastic and delicious all the time. And of course, now when Mr. Wonka invents something new and wonderful candy, neither Mr. Ficklegruber, nor Prodnose, nor Slugworth, nor anybody else is able to copy it. No spies can go in the factory to find out how it's made. But Grandpa, who? Cried Charlie. Who is Mr. Wonka using to do all the work in the factory? Nobody knows, Charlie. But that's absurd. Hasn't someone asked Mr. Wonka? Nobody's seen him anymore. He never comes out. The only thing that comes out of that place are chocolates and candies. They come out through a special trapdoor in the wall, all packed and addressed, and they are picked up every day by office trucks. But Grandpa, what sort of people are they that work in there? My dear boy, said Grandpa Joe, that is one of the greatest mysteries of the chocolate making world. We know only one thing about them. They are small, the faint shadows that sometimes appear behind the windows, especially late at night when the lights are on, are those of tiny people. People no taller than my knee. They aren't any such people, said Charlie. Just then Mr. Bucket, Charlie's father, came into the room. He was home from the toothpaste factory, and he was waving an evening newspaper rather excitedly. Have you heard the news? He cried. He held up the paper so that they could see a huge headline. The headline said, Wonka Factory to be open at last to lucky few. Chapter 5 The Golden Tickets. You mean people are actually going to be allowed to go inside the factory? Cried Grandpa Joe. Read us what it says quickly. All right, said Mr. Bucket, smoothing out the newspaper. Listen. Evening Bulletin. Mr. Willy Wonka, the candy making genius who nobody has seen for the last 10 years, sent out the following notice today. I, Willy Wonka, have decided to allow 5 children, just 5, mind you, no and no more, to visit my factory this year. These lucky 5 will be shown around personally by me, and they will be allowed to see all the secrets and magic of my factory. Then, at the end of the tour, as a special present, all of them will be given enough chocolate and candies to last them for the rest of their lives. So watch out for the golden tickets. 5 golden tickets have been printed on golden paper, and these 5 golden tickets have been hidden underneath the ordinary wrapping paper of 5 ordinary candy bars. These 5 candy bars may be anywhere, in any shop, in any street, in any town, in any country in the world. Upon counter where Wonka candy are sold. And the 5 lucky finders of these 5 golden tickets are the only ones who'll be allowed to visit my factory and see it's like now inside. Good luck to you all, and happy hunting. Signed, Willy Wonka. The man's dotty, muttered Grandma Josephine. He's brilliant, cried Grandpa Joe. He's a magician. Just imagine what will happen now. The whole world will be searching for those golden tickets. Everyone will be buying Wonka's candy bars in the hopes of finding one. He'll sell more than ever before. How exciting it would be to find one. And all the chocolate and candies that you could ever eat for the rest of your life. Free, said Grandpa George. Just imagine that. They'll have to deliver them in a truck, said Grandma Georgina. It makes me quite ill to think of that, said Grandma Josephine. Nonsense, cried Grandpa Joe. Wouldn't it be something, Charlie, to open a bar of candy and see a golden ticket glistening inside? It certainly would, Grandpa, but there isn't hope, Charlie said sadly. I only get one bar a year. You never know, darling, said Grandma Georgina. It's your birthday next week. You have as much chance as anybody else. I'm afraid that simply isn't true, said Grandpa George. The ticket the kids who are going to find the golden ticket are the ones who can afford to buy candy bars. Every day, our Charlie get, gets only one a year. There isn't a hope. Chapter 6. The First Two Finders. The very next day, the first golden ticket was found, and the finder was a boy called Augustus Gloop. And Mr. Bucket's evening newspaper carried a large picture of him on the front page. The picture showed a 9-year-old boy who was so enormously fat he looked as though he had been blown up with a powerful pump. Great flabby folds of fat bulged out from every part of his body, and his face was like a monstrous ball of dough with two small, greedy, currently eyes peering out upon the world. The town in which Augustus Gloop lived, the newspaper said, had gone wild with excitement over their hero. Flags were flying from all the windows. Children had been given a holiday from school, and a parade was being organized in honor of the famous youth. I just knew Augustus would find a golden ticket, his mother told the newspaperman. He eats so much candy bars a day that it was almost impossible for him not to find one. Eating is his hobby, and that's all he's interested in. But still, that's better than being a, a hooligan and shooting off zip guns and things like that in his spare time, isn't it? And and what I always say is he wouldn't go on eating like he does unless he needed nourishment, would he? It's all vitamins anyways. What a thrill it will be for him to visit Mr. Wonka's marvelous factory. We're we're just as proud as can be. What a revolting woman, said Grandma Josephine. And what a repulsive boy, said Grandma Georgina. Only 4 tickets are left, said Grandpa George. I wonder who'll get those. And now the whole country, indeed, the whole world, seemed suddenly to be caught up in the mad candy buying spree, everybody searching frantically for those precious remaining tickets. Fully grown women were seen going into sweatshops and buying 10 Wonka candy candy bars at a time, tearing off the wrapper on the spot and peering eagerly underneath for a glint of gold paper. Children, children were taking hammers and smashing their piggy banks and running out to the shops with a handful of money. In one city, a famous gangster robbed a bank of $5,000 and spent the whole lot on candy bars at the same afternoon. And when police entered his house to arrest him, they found him sitting on the floor amidst mountains of candy wrappers, ripped off wrappers, with a blade of a long dagger. And far off Russia, a woman called Charlotte Russell claimed to have found the second ticket, but it turned out to be a clever fake. In England, the famous scientist Professor Valbody invented a machine which would tell you at once, without opening the wrapper of a candy bar, whether it was not there was a golden ticket hidden underneath. The machine had a mechanical arm that shot out with tremendous force and grabbed hold of anything that had the slightest bit of gold inside. And for a moment, it looked like the answers to everything, but unfortunately, while the professor was showing off the machine at a pub to a public to the public at a candy counter at a large department store, the mechanical arm shot out and made a grab for gold filling in the back tooth of a duchess who was standing nearby. There was an ugly scene and the machine was smashed by the crowd. Suddenly, on the day before Charlie Bucket's birthday, the newspaper announced that the second golden ticket has been found. The lucky person was a small girl called Veruca Salt, who lived with her rich parents in a great city far away. Once again, Mr. Bucket's evening newspaper carried a picture of the finder. She was sitting between her beaming father and mother in the living room of their house, waving the golden ticket above her head and grinning from ear to ear. Veruca's father, Mr. Salt, had eagerly explained to the newspaperman excitedly how the ticket was found. You see, fellows, he said, he had said, as soon as my little girl told me that she simply had to have one of those golden tickets, I went out into the town and started buying up all the Wonka bars I could lay my hands on. Thousands of them. I must have bought hundreds of thousands. Then I had them loaded into trucks and sent directly to my own factory. I'm in the peanut business, you see, and I've got about 100 women working for me over at my joints shelling peanuts for roasting and salting. That's what they do all day long. Those women, they sit there shelling peanuts, so I could, so I say to them, "Okay, girls," I say, I says, "from now on, you'll stop shelling peanuts and start shelling the wrappers off these crazy candy bars instead." And they did. I had every worker in the place yanking the paper off those bars of chocolate, full full speed ahead from morning till night. But 3 days went by and we had no luck. Oh, it was terrible. My little Ruka got more and more each upset each day, and every time I went home, she would scream at me, "Where's my golden ticket? I want my golden ticket." And she would lie for hours on the floor, kicking and yelling in the most disturbing way. Well, sir, I just hated to see my little girl feeling unhappy like that. So I vowed I would keep up the search until I gotten her what she wanted. Then suddenly, on the evening of the fourth day, one of my woman workers yelled, "I've got it! I got a golden ticket!" And they said, "Give it to me quick!" And she did. And I rushed it home and gave it to my darling Veruca. And now she smiles and now she's all smiles. We are happy. We have a happy home once again. That's even worse than the fat boy," said Grandma Josephine. "She needs real good spanking," said Grandpa Georgina. "I don't think the girl's father played it quite fair, Grandpa. Do you?" Charlie muttered. "He spoils her," Grandpa Joe said, "and no good can ever come from spoiling a child like that. Charlie, you mark my words." "Come to bed, my darling," said Charlie's mother. Tomorrow's your birthday. Don't forget that. So I expect you to be up early to open your present. A Wonka, a Wonka candy bar, cried Charlie. It's a Wonka candy bar, isn't it? Yes, my love, his mother said. Of course it is. Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I found the third golden ticket inside, Charlie said. Bring it in here when you get it, Grandpa Joe said, and then we can all watch you taking off the wrapper. Chapter 7 Charlie's Birthday. Happy birthday, cried the four old grandparents as Charlie came into their room early the next morning. Charlie smiled nervously and sat down on the edge of the bed. He was holding his present, his only present, very carefully in his two hands. Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight, it said on the wrapper. The four old people, the two at each of the bed, pop, propped themselves up on their pillows and started and stared with anxious ears at the candy bar in Charlie's hands. Mr. and Mrs. Bucket came in and stood at the foot of the bed watching Charlie. The room became silent. Everyone was waiting now for Charlie to start opening his present. Charlie looked down at the candy bar. He ran his fingers slowly back and forth along the length of it, stroking it lovingly. And the shiny paper wrapping made little sharp crackling noises in the quiet room. Then Mrs. Bucket said gently, "You mustn't be too disappointed, my darling. If you don't find what you're looking for underneath that wrapper, you really can't expect to be as lucky as all that." "She's quite right," Mr. Bucket said. Charlie didn't say anything. "After all," Grandma Josephine said, "in the whole wide world, there's only 3 tickets left to be found." "Thing to remember," Grandma Georgina said, "it is whether it it's that whatever happens, you'll still have the bar of candy. Wonka's Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight," cried cried Grandpa George. It's the best it's the best of them all. You'll just love it." "Yes," Charlie whispered. "I know." "Just forget all about those golden tickets and enjoy the candy," Grandpa Joe said. "Why don't you do that?" They all knew it was ridiculous to expect this one poor little candy bar to have the magical little ticket inside it, and they were trying as gently and as kindly as they could to prepare Charlie for the disappointment. But there was one other thing that grown ups also knew, and it was this: that however small the chance might be, striking lucky, the chance was always there. The chance had to be there. This particular candy bar had as much chance as any other of having a golden ticket. And that was why all the grandparents and parents in the room were actually just as tense and excited as Charlie was. Although they were pretending to be very calm. "You better go ahead and open it up, or you'll be late for school," Grandpa Joe said. "You might as well get it over with," Grandpa George said. "Open it, my dear," Grandma Georgina said. "Please open it. You're making me jumpy." Very slowly, Charlie's fingers began to tear one small corner of the wrapping paper. The old people in the bed all leaned forward, craning their scraggly necks. Then suddenly, as though he couldn't bear the suspense any longer, Charlie tore the wrapper right down. And on his lap there fell a light brown, creamy colored chocolate candy bar. And there was no sight of a golden ticket anywhere. Well, that's that, said Grandpa George brightly. It's just what we expected. Charlie looked up. Four kind old faces were there watching him intensely from their bed. He smiled at them, a small, sad smile, and then he shrugged his shoulders and picked up the candy bar and held it out to his mother and said, "Here, mother, have a have a bit. We'll share it. I want everyone to taste it." "Certainly not," his mother said. And the others all cried, "No, no, we wouldn't dream of it. It's all yours." "Please," begged Charlie, turning around and offering it to Grandpa Joe. But neither he nor anyone else would take a tiny bite. "It's time to go to school, my darling," Mrs. Bucket said, putting an arm around Charlie's skinny shoulders. "Come on, you'll be late." Intermission. Ugh. Woo. Okay. Chapter 8. 2 more golden tickets are found. That evening, Mr. Bucket's newspaper announced that the finding of not only but the third golden ticket, but the fourth as well. 2 golden tickets found today, screamed the headlines. Only 2 more left. "All right," said Grandpa Joe, when the whole family was gathered in the old people's room after supper. "Let's hear who found them." The third ticket read, Mr. Bucket, holding the newspaper up close to his face because his eyes were bad and he couldn't afford glasses. The third ticket was found by a Miss Violet Beauregard, and there was a great excitement in the Beauregard household when our reporter arrived to interview the lucky young lady. Cameras were clicking and the flashbulbs were flashing and people were pushing and jolting and trying to get a bit closer to the famous girl. And the famous girl was standing on a chair in the living room, waving the golden ticket madly at arms lengths as though she were flagging a taxi. She was talking very fast and very loud to everyone, but it was not easy to hear all that she said because she was chewing so voraciously upon a piece of gum at the same time. "I'm a gum chewer normally," she shouted, "but when I heard about these ticket things of Mr. Wonka's, I laid off the gum and switched to candy bars in the hopes of striking lucky. Now, of course, I'm right back on gum. I just adore gum. I can't do without it. I can't do without it. I munch, I munch, I munch it all day long, except for a few minutes at meals when I take it out and stick it behind my ear for safekeepings. To tell you, ugh, the honest truth, I simply wouldn't feel comfortable if I didn't have that little wedge of gum to chew on every moment of the day. I really wouldn't. My mother says it's not ladylike and it looks ugly to see a girl's jaws going up and down like mine do all the time, but I don't agree. And who's she to criticize anyway? Because if you ask me, I'd rather hear her jaws be going up and down almost as much as mine are just from yelling at me every minute of the day. Now, Violet, Mrs. Beauregard said from a far corner of the room where she was standing on the piano to avoid being trampled by the mob. All right, mother, keep your hair on, Miss Beauregard shouted. And, and now she went on, turning to the reporters again. It may interest you to know that this piece of gum I'm chewing right at this moment is one I've been working on for over 3 months solid. That's a record that is. It's beaten the record held by my best friend Miss Cornelia Pritzmetal. And she was mad. It's it's my most treasured possession. Now this piece of gum is at night I just stick it on the end of the bedpost and it's as good as ever in the morning. I bit hard at first, maybe, but it soon softened up again after that. I'll given it a few good chews before I start chewing for the world record. I used to change my pieces of gum once a day. I used to do it in our elevator on the way home from school. Why the elevator? Because I liked sticking the gooey piece that I just finished with onto one of those elevator buttons. Then the next person who came along to push the button got my old gum at the of of his or hers finger. Haha. And what a racket they'll kick up. Some of them you get the best results with women who have expensive gloves on. Oh yes, I am thrilled to be going to Mr. Wonka's factory, and I understand that afterwards he's going to give me enough gum to last me for the rest of my whole life. Whippy hooray! Beastly girl, said Grandma Josephine. Despicable, said Grandma Georgina. And she'll come to a sticky end one day, chewing all that gum, you see, if she doesn't. And who got the fourth golden ticket, Daddy? Charlie asked. Now, let me see, said Mr. Bucket, peering at the newspaper again. Ah, yes, here we are. The fourth golden ticket, he read, was found by a boy called Mike TV. Another bad lot to be bound, muttered Grandma Josephine. Don't interrupt, Grandma, said Mrs. Bucket. The, the, the TV household, said Mr. Bucket, going on with reading, was crammed like all the other with excited visitors when our reporters arrived, but young Mike TV, the lucky winner, seemed extremely annoyed by the whole business. Can't you fools see I'm watching television? He said angrily. I wish you wouldn't interrupt. The 9-year-old boy was seated before an enormous television set, with his eyes glued to the screen, and he was watching a film in which one bunch of gangsters was shooting up another bunch of gangsters with machine guns. Mike TV himself had no less than 18 toy pistols of various sizes hanging from belts around his body. Every now and again, he would leap up into the air and fire off half a dozen rounds from one or the other of these weapons. Quiet, he shouted when someone tried to ask them a question. Didn't I tell you not to interrupt? This show was absolute whiz banger. It's terrific. I watch it every day. I watch all of them every day, even the crummy ones where there's no shooting. I like the gangsters the best. There's terrific, those gangsters, especially when they start pumping each other full of lead and flashing the old stilettos, or giving each other the 1, 2, 3 with their knuckle dusters. Oh boy, what wouldn't I give to be doing that myself? It's the life. I tell you, it's terrific. It's quite enough, snapped Grandma Josephine. I can't bear to listen to it. Nor me, said Grandma Georgina. Do all children behave like this nowadays? Like these brats we've been hearing about? Of course not, said Mr. Bucket, smiling at the old lady in bed. Some do, of course. In fact, quite a lot of them do, but not all. And now there's only one ticket left, said Grandpa George. Quite so, sniffed Grandma Georgina. And just as sure as it will I'll be having cabbage soup for supper tomorrow, that ticket will go to some nasty little beast who doesn't deserve it. Little intermission there. Man, how are all of you at the moment? As we take this little intermission because I need to refuel. Ugh. Oh my god. Still a lot to do. Gonna be don't worry, I'm here all night to be reading, but yeah. Let's with that intermission done, refuel. My throat is gonna be hurting. Uh so let's continue. Let me I'm just gonna take the hat off for a little bit because this hurts because it's pushing down my head. Anyways, um chapter 9. Grandpa Joe takes a grumble. The next day, when Charlie came home from school and went in to see his grandparents, he found that only Grandpa Joe was awake, and the other three was snoring loudly. Shh, whispered Grandpa Joe, and he beckoned Charlie to come closer. Charlie tiptoed over and stood beside the bed. The old man gave Charlie a sly grin, and then he started rumbling underneath his pillow with one hand. And when the hand came out again, there was an ancient leather purse clutched to his fingers. Under the cover of the bedcloth, the old man opened the purse and tipped it upside down. Out fell a single silver 10-cent piece. It's my secret hoard, he whispered. The others don't know I've got it, and now you and I are going to have one more fling at finding that last ticket. How about it, eh? But you'll have to help me. Are you sure you want to spend your money on that, Grandpa? Charlie whispered. Of course I'm sure, spluttered the old man excitingly. Don't stand there arguing. I'm just as crazy as you are to find that ticket. Here, take the money and run down the street to the nearest store and buy the first Wonka candy bar you see and bring it straight back to me, and we'll open it together. Charlie took the silver coin and slipped it quickly out of the room. In 5 minutes, he was back. Have you got it? Whispered Grandpa Joe, his eyes shining with excitement. Charlie nodded and held out the candy bar. Wonka's Nutty Crunch Surprise, it said on the wrapper. Good, said the old man, whispering. Sitting up in the bed, here, and rumbling his hand. Now, come over here and sit close to me, and we'll open it together. Are you ready? Yes, Charlie said. I'm ready. All right, you tear off the first bit. No, Charlie said. You paid for it. You do it all. The old man's fingers were trembling most terribly as they fumbled with the candy bar. We don't have a hope, really, he whispered, giggling a bit. You do know we don't have a hope, don't you? Yes, Charlie said. I know that. They looked at each other and both started giggling nervously. Mind you, said Grandpa Joe, there is just that tiny chance that it might be the one. Don't you agree? Yes, Charlie said. Of course. Why don't you open it, Grandpa? All in good time, my boy. All in good time. Which end you think I oughta to open first? That corner, the one furthest from you. Just tear off a tiny bit, but not quite enough for us to see anything. Like that, said the old man. Yes. No. A little bit more? You finish it, said Grandpa Joe. I'm too nervous. No, Grandpa. You must do it yourself. Very well then. Here goes. He tore off the wrapper. They both stared at what lay underneath. It was a bar of candy, nothing more. All at once, they both saw the funny side of the whole thing, and they burst into peals of laughter. What the heck's going on? Cried Grandma Josephine, waking up suddenly. Nothing, said Grandpa Joe. You go back to sleep. Chapter 10. The family begins to starve. During the next 2 weeks, the weather turned very cold. First came the snow. It began very suddenly one morning, just as Charlie Bucket was getting dressed for school. Standing by the window, he saw the huge flakes drifting slowly down out of an icy sky, and that was the color of steel. By evening, it lay 4 feet deep around the tiny house, and Mr. Bucket had to dig a path from the front door to the road. After the snow, there came freezing gale that blew for days and days without stopping. And oh, how bitter cold it was! Everything that Charlie touched seemed to be made of ice, and each time he stepped outside the door, the wind was like a knife on his cheek. Inside the house, little jets of freezing air came rushing in through the sides of the windows and underneath the door, and there was no place to go to escape them. The four old ones lay silent and huddled in their bed, trying to keep the cold out of their bones. The excitement, the excitement over the golden ticket had long since been forgotten. Nobody in the family gave a thought now to anything except the two vital problems of trying to keep warm and trying to get enough to eat. There's something about very cold weather to give one an enormous appetite. Most of us find ourselves beginning to crave rich, steaming stews and hot apple pies and all kinds of delicious warm dishes. And because we are all a great deal luckier than we realize, we usually get what we want, or near enough. But Charlie Bucket never got what he wanted because the family couldn't afford it. And the cold weather went on and on. He became ravenous and desperately hungry. Both bars of candy, the birthday one and the one Grandpa Joe had bought, had long since been nibbled away, and and all he got now were those thin, cabbagey meals 3 times a day. Then, all at once, the meals became thinner. The reason for this was that the toothpaste factory, the place where Mr. Bucket worked, suddenly went out, suddenly went bust and had to close down. Quickly, Mr. Bucket tried to get another job, but he had no luck. In the end, the only way in which he managed to earn a few pennies was by shoveling snow in the streets. But it wasn't enough to buy even a quarter of the food that 7 people needed. The situation became desperate. Breakfast was a single slice of bread for each person now, and lunch was maybe half a boiled potato. Slowly but surely, everybody in the house began to starve. And every day, little Charlie Bucket, trudging through the snow on his way to school, would have passed Mr. Willy Wonka's great chocolate factory. And every day, as he came near it, he would lift his small pointed nose high in the air and sniff the wonderful sweet smell of melting chocolate. Sometimes he would stand motionless outside the gate for several minutes on end, taking deep swallowing breaths as though he were trying to eat the smell itself. That child, said Grandpa Joe, poking his head up from underneath one icy morning. That child got to have more food. It doesn't matter about us. We're too old to bother with. But a growing boy, he can't go on like this. He's beginning to look like a skeleton. What can we what can one do? Muttered Grandpa Josephine miserably. He refused to take any of ours. I hear his mother tried to slip her own piece of bread onto his plate at breakfast this morning, but he wouldn't touch it. He made her take it back. He's a fine little fellow, said Grandpa George. He deserves better than this. The cruel weather went on, and every day Charlie Bucket grew thinner and thinner. His face became frank, frighteningly white and, and pinched. The skin was drawn so tightly over the cheeks that you could see the shape of the bones underneath. It seems doubtful whether he could go on much longer like this without becoming dangerously ill. And now, very calmly, with that curious wisdom that seemed to come so often to small children, in times of hardship, he began to make little changes here and there in some of the things that he did. So to save his strength, in the morning, in the mornings, he left the house 10 minutes early so he could walk slowly to school without ever having to run. He sat quietly in the classroom during recess, resting himself, while the others rushed outdoors and threw snowballs and wrestling in the snow. Everything he did now, he did slowly and carefully to prevent exhaustion. Then one afternoon, walking back home with an icy wind in his face and incidentally feeling hungrier than he had ever before. His eyes were caught suddenly by a piece of paper that was lying in the gutter in the snow. The paper was of a greenish color, and there was something vaguely familiar about it. Charlie stepped off the curb and bent down to examine it. Part of it was buried under the snow, but he saw at once what it was. It was a dollar bill. Quickly he looked around him. Had somebody dropped it? No, that was impossible because of the way it was part of the way part of it was buried. Several people went hurrying past them on the sidewalk, their their chins sunken deep in the collars of their coats, their feet crunching the snow. None of them was searching for any money. None of them was taking the slightest notice of the small boy crouching in the gutter. Then, was it his? This dollar? Could he have it? Carefully, Charlie pulled it out from underneath the snow. It was damp and dirty, but otherwise perfect. A whole dollar. He held it tightly between in his shivering fingers, gazing up, gazing down at it. It meant one thing. To him at that moment, only one thing. It meant food. Automatically, Charlie turned and began moving towards the nearest shop. It was only 10 paces away. It was a news it was a newspaper and sanitary store. The kind that sells almost everything, including candy and cigars. And what he would do, he whispered to himself quietly, he would buy one luscious bar of candy and eat it all up, every bit of it, right then and there. And then the rest of the money, he would take it straight back home and give it to his mother. Well, today is a very hot day. Ugh. Okay. Chapter 11, The Miracle. Charlie entered the store and laid the damp dollar bill on the counter. One Wonka scrib, One's Wonka Whipple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight, he said, remembering how much he had loved the one he had on his birthday. The man behind the counter looked fat and well fed. He had big lips and fat cheeks and a very fat neck. The fat around his neck bulged out all around the top of his collar like a rubber ring. He, he turned and reached behind him for the candy bar, then turned back and handed it to Charlie. Charlie grabbed it and quickly tore off the wrapper and took an enormous bite. Then he took another and another, and oh, the joy of being able to cram large pieces of something sweet and solid into one's mouth. The sheer blissful joy of being able to fill one's mouth with rich, solid food. You look like you you look like you wanted that one, Sonny, the shopkeeper said pleasantly. Charlie nodded, and and his mouth bulging with chocolate. The shopkeeper put Charlie's change on the counter. Take it easy, he said. It'll give you a gut ache if you swallow it like that without chewing. Charlie went on, wolfing the candy. He couldn't stop. And in less than half a minute, the whole thing had disappeared down his throat. He was quite out of breath, but he felt marvelous, extraordinarily happy. He reached out a hand to take the change, then proceeded to pause. His eyes were just above of the level of the counter. They were staring at the little silver coins lying there. The coins were all were all dimes, and there were 9 of them altogether. Surely it wouldn't matter if he just spent one more. I think, he said quietly, I think I'll just have one more of those candy bars. The same kind as before, please. Why not? The fat shopkeeper said, reaching behind him again and taking another Whipple scrumptious fudge mellow delight from the shelf. He laid it on the counter. Charlie picked it up and tore off the wrapper. And suddenly, from underneath the wrapper, there came a brilliant flash of gold. Charlie's heart stood still. It's it's a golden ticket, screamed the shopkeeper, leaping up about a foot in the air. You've gotten a golden ticket! You found the glass golden ticket! Hey, what do you know? Come and look at this, everybody. The kids found Wonka's last golden ticket. There it is. It is right there in his hands. It seemed as though the shopkeeper might be going to have a fit. In my shop too, he yelled. He found it right here in my own little shop. Somebody call the newspapers quick and let them know. Watch out now, Sonny. Don't don't tear it as you unwrap it. That thing's precious. In a few seconds, there was a crowd of about 20 people clustered around Charlie, and many more were pushing their way in from the street. Everybody wanted to get a look at the golden ticket at the lucky finder. Where is it? Somebody shouted. Hold it up so all of us can see. There it is, someone else yelled. He's holding it in his hands. See the golden shine? How did he manage to find it? I'd like to know, a large boy shouted angrily. 20 bars a day I've been buying for weeks and weeks. Think of all the free stuff he'll be getting too, another boy said enviously. A lifetime supply. He'll need it. This the skinny little shrimp, a girl said, laughing. Charlie hadn't moved. He hadn't even unwrapped the golden ticket from around the candy bar. He's He was standing very still, holding it tightly with both his hands, while the crowd pushed and shouted all around him. He felt quite dizzy. There was a particular floating sensation coming over him, as though he was as though he were floating up in the air like a balloon. His feet didn't seem to be touching the ground at all. He could hear his heart thumping away loudly somewhere in his throat. At that point, he had become aware of a hand resting lightly on his shoulder, and when he looked up, he saw a tall man standing over him. Listen, the man whispered, I'll buy it from you. I'll give you $50. How about it, eh? And I'll give you a new bicycle as well, okay? Are you crazy? Shouted a woman who was standing equally close. I'll give him $500 for that ticket. You want to sell that ticket for $500, young man? That's quite enough of that, the fat shopkeeper shouted, pushing his way through the crowd and taking Charlie firmly by the arm. Leave the kid alone, will you? Make way there. Let him out. And to Charlie, as he led him to the door, he whispered, Don't let anybody have it. Take it straight home, quickly, before you lose it. Run all the way and don't stop until you get there. Understood? Charlie nodded. You know something? The fat the fat shopkeeper said, pausing for a moment and smiling at Charlie. I have a feeling you need a little a, a, I have a feeling you need a break like this. I'm awfully glad you got it. Good luck to you, Sonny. Thank you, Charlie said, and off he went, running through the snow as fast as his legs would go. And as he flew past Mr. Willy Wonka's factory, he turned and waved at it and sang out, I'll be seeing you! I'll be seeing you soon! And 5 minutes later, he arrived at his own home. Chapter 12. What it said on the golden ticket. Charlie bursted through the door. Charlie burst through the front door shouting, Mother! 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 Mrs. Bucket was in the old grandparents' room, serving them their evenly soup. Mother! Yelled Charlie, rushing in on them like a hurricane. Look, I've got it! Look, Mother! Look! The last golden ticket! It's mine! I found some money in the street and I bought 2 candy bars, and the second one had the golden ticket. And there were crowds of people all around me waiting to see it. The shopkeeper rescued me, and I ran all the way home, and here I am. It's the 5th golden ticket, Mother. I found it. Mrs. Bucket simply stood and stared, while the 4 old grandparents, who were sitting up in bed, balancing bowls of soup on their laps, all dropped their spoons with a clatter and froze against their pillows. For about 10 seconds, there was absolute silence in the room. Nobody dared to speak or move. It was a magic moment. Then, very softly, Grandpa Joe said, You're pulling our leg, Charlie, aren't you? You're having a little joke? I am not, cried Charlie, rushing up to the bed and holding out the large and beautiful golden ticket for him to see. Grandpa Joe leaned forward and took a closer look, his nose almost touching the ticket, the others watching him, waiting for the verdict. Then, very slowly, with a slow and marvelous grin spreading all over his face, Grandpa Joe lifted his head and looked straight at Charlie. The color was rushing to his cheeks, and his eyes were wide open, shining with joy, and in the center of each eye, right now, in the very center, in the black pupils, a little spark of wild excitement was slowly dancing. And then the tiny old man took a deep breath, and suddenly, with no warning whatsoever, an explosion seemed to take place inside him. He threw up his arms and yelled, Yippee! And at the same time, his long, bony body rose up out of bed, and his bowl of soup went flying into the face of Grandma Josephine. And in one fantastic leap, this old fellow of 96 and a half, who hadn't been out of bed these last 20 years, jumped onto the floor and started doing a dance of victory in his pajamas. Yippee! He shouted. Three cheers for Three cheers for Charlie. Yip, yip, hooray! At this point, the door opened and Mr. Bucket walked into the room. He was cold and tired, and he looked it. All day long, he had been shoveling snow in the streets. Crips, he cried. What's going on in here? It didn't take long to tell him what had happened. I don't believe it, he said. It's not possible. Show him the ticket, Charlie, shouted Grandpa Joe, who was still dancing around the floor like a dervish in his striped pajamas. Show your father the 5th and last golden ticket in the world. Let me see it, Charlie, Mr. Bucket said, collapsing into a chair and holding out his hand. Charlie came forward with the purchases document. It was a very beautiful thing, this golden ticket having been made. So it seemed from a sheet of pure gold hammered out almost to the thinness of paper. On one side of it, printed by some clever method in jet black lettering, was the invitation itself from Mr. Wonka. Read it aloud, said Grandpa Joe, climbing back onto the bed at last. Let's hear exactly what it says. Mr. Bucket held the lovely golden ticket up close. To his eyes, his hands were trembling slightly, and he seemed to be overcome by the whole business. He took several deep breaths, and then he cleared his throat and said, "All right, here we go. Greetings to you, the lucky finder of this golden ticket, from Mr. Willy Wonka. I shake you warmly by the hand. Tremendous things are in store for you. Many wonderful surprises await you. For now, I do invite you to come to my factory and be my guest for one whole day. You and all others who are lucky enough to find my golden tickets, I, Willy Wonka, will conduct you around the factory myself, showing you everything that there is to see. And when there is when, afterwards, when it is time to leave, you'll be escorted home by a precious of by a pro. Sorry, shit, I lost my placement. And afterwards, when it is time to leave, you'll be escorted home by a procession of large trucks. These trucks, I can promise you, will be loaded with enough delicious edibles to last you and your entire household for many years. If at any time thereafter you should run out of supplies, you'll have to only come back to the factory and show this golden ticket, and I shall be happy to refill your cupboards with whatever you want. In this way, you'll be able to keep yourself supplied with tasty morsels for the rest of your life. But this is by no means the most exciting thing that will ever happen on the day of your visit. I'm preparing other surprises that are even more marvelous and more fantastic for you and all my beloved golden ticket holders. Mystic and marvelous surprises that will entrance, delight, intrigue, astonish, and perplex you beyond measure. In your wildest dreams, you could not imagine that such things could happen to you. Just wait and see. And now, here are your instructions. The day I have chosen for the visit is the first day of the month of February. On this day, and on no other, you must come to the factory gates at 10 o'clock sharp in the morning. Don't be late. You are allowed to bring with you either one or two members of your own family to look after you and ensure that you don't get into mischief. One more thing, be certain to have this ticket with you, otherwise, you will not be admitted. Signed, Willy Wonka. The first day of February, cried Mrs. Bucket. But that's tomorrow. Today's the last day of January. I know it is. Cripes, said Mr. Bucket. I think you're right. You've you've just You're just in time," shouted Grandpa Joe. "There's not a moment to lose. You must start making preparations at once. Wash your face, comb your hair, scrub your hands, brush your teeth, blow your nose, cut your nails, polish your shoes, iron your shirts, and for heaven's sake, get all that mud off your pants. You must be ready, my boy. You must get ready for the biggest day of your life. Now, don't overexcite yourself, Grandpa," Mrs. Bucket said, "and don't fluster poor Charlie. We must all try to keep very calm. Now, the first thing to decide is this: who is going to go with Charlie to the factory?" "I will," shouted Grandpa Joe, leaping out of bed once more. "I'll take him. I'll look after him. You'll leave it to me." Mrs. Bucket smiled at the old man, then turned to her husband and said, "How about you, dear? Don't you think you ought to go?" "Well," Mr. Bucket said, pausing to think about it, "no, I'm not sure that I should. But you must. There's no must about it, my dear," Mr. Bucket said gently. "Mind you, I'll love to go, but it'll be tremendously exciting. and- But on the other hand, I believe that person who really deserves to go most of all is Grandpa Joe himself. He seems to know more about it than we do, providing, of course, that he feels well enough." "Yippee!" shouted Grandpa Joe, seizing Charlie by the hand and dancing around the room. He certainly seems well enough," Mrs. Bucket said, laughing. "Yes, perhaps you're right, after all. Perhaps Grandpa Joe should be the one to go with him. I certainly can't go myself and leave the other three old people all alone in bed for the whole day." "Hallelujah!" yelled Grandpa Joe. "Praise the Lord!" At that point, there came a loud knock at the front door. Mr. Bucket went to open it, and the next moment, swarms of newspapermen and photographers were pouring into the house. They had tracked down the fifth finder of the golden ticket, and now they're all wanted to get the full story for the front pages of the morning newspaper. For several hours, there was complete pandemonium in the little house, and it must have been nearly midnight before Mr. Bucket was able to get rid of them, so that Charlie could go to bed. That right there. You know what? Big gulp, big gulp. Cheers. Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Note to self. Uh, 10 bottles of water. Ugh. Before I continue, oh shit. I can break reality. I am Willie. Feel my power, mother. I am Wonka. Feel feel the power of the water bottle. I am going insane. I might take a little intermission so I can restock on water. So um I do not know how I could do this. Actually, let me just. Okay, much better. Okay. Return with 2 more waters. Okay. Hope all of you are enjoying the reading so far. We're about 2 hours in. Jesus Christ, 2 hours in. Uh, 2 hours in, and we're on chapter 13 out of. Ah! How many chapters are there? So we're about 1/3 of the way. So now that I'm refreshed, let us continue our let us continue this journey. Ahem. Chapter 13: The big day arrives. And I got water on the page. Shit. Oh. Uh, the sun is shining brightly on the morning of the big day, but the ground was still white with snow, and the air was very cold. Outside the gates of Wonka's factory, enormous crowds of people had gathered to watch the lucky 5 ticket holders going in. The excitement was tremendous. It was about 10 o'clock. It was just before 10 o'clock. The crowds were pushing and shouting, and the policemen with large arms linked were trying to hold them back from the gates. Right beside the gates, in a small group that that was carefully shielded from the crowd by the police, stood the 5 famous children, together with the grown-ups who had come with them. The tall, bony old figure of Grandpa Joe could be seen standing quietly among them, and besides him, hol- holding tightly on on Onto his hand was little Charlie Bucket himself. All the children except Charlie had both their mothers and fathers with them, and it was a good thing that they had. Otherwise, the whole party might have gotten out of hand. They were so eager to get going that their parents were having to hold them back by force to prevent them from climbing over the gates. Be patient, cried the fathers. Be still. It's still not time yet. It's not 10 o'clock. Behind him, Charlie Bucket could hear the shouts of the people in the crowds as they pushed and fought to get a glimpse of the famous children. There's Violet Beauregard, he heard someone shouting. That's her, all right. I can remember her face from the newspapers. And you know what? Somebody else shouted back. She's still chewing that dreadful old piece of gum. She's had it for 3 months. You look at her jaws, they're still working on it. Who's the big fat boy? That's Augustus Gloop. So it is. Enormous, isn't he? Fantastic. Who's the kid with the picture of the Lone Ranger cinched on his windbreaker? That's Mike TV. He's the television fiend. He must be crazy. Look at all those crazy pistols he's got hanging all over him. The one I want to see is Veruca Salt, shouted another voice in the crowd. She's the girl whose father bought up 500,000 candy bars and then had the workers in his peanut factory unwrap every one of them until they found a golden ticket. He gives her anything she wants. Absolutely anything. She only has to start screaming for it, and she gets it. Dreadful, isn't it? Shocking, I call it. Which which do you think is her? That one over there on the left, the little girl in the silver mint coat. Which one is Charlie Bucket? Charlie Bucket? He must be the skinny little shrimp standing beside the old fellow who looks like a skeleton. Right here close to us. Just there, see him? Why hasn't he got a coat it on in this cold weather? Don't ask me. Maybe he just can't afford to buy one. Jeepers, he must be freezing. Charlie, standing only a few paces away from the speaker, gave Grandpa Joe's hand a squeeze, and the old man looked down at Charlie and smiled. Somewhere in the distance, the church clock began striking 10. Very slowly, with a loud creaking, rustly hinges, the the great iron gates of the factory began to swing openly. The crowd began silently. Be, the crowd suddenly became silent. The children stopped jumping about. All eyes were fixed upon the gates. There he is, shouted someone. That's him. And so it was. Chapter 14, Mr. Willy Wonka. Mr. Wonka was standing all alone just inside the open gates of the factory. He and what an extraordinary little man he was. He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made out of beautiful plum color velvet. His trousers were both green, his gloves were pearly gray, and in the other hand, he carried a fine gold top walking cane. Covering his chin, there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee, and in his eyes were the most marvelously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all the time. The whole face, in fact, was aligned with a fun and laughter. And oh, how clever he looked! How quickly and sharp and full of life he kept making quick, jerky little movements with his head, cocking it all, cocking cocking it this way and that, and talking everything and taking everything in those bright twinkling eyes. He was like a squirrel in those quickness of his movements, like a quick, clever old squirrel from the park. Suddenly, he did a funny little skipping dance in the snow, and he spread his arms wide, and he smiled at the five children who were clustered near the gate, and he called out, "Welcome, my little friends! Welcome to the factory!" His voice was high and fluently. "Will you come forward, one at a time, please?" he called out, "and bring your parents. Then show me your golden tickets and give me your names. Who's first?" The big fat boy stepped up. "I'm Augustus Gloop," he said. "Augustus!" cried Mr. Wonka, seizing his hand and pumping it up and down with terrific force. "My dear boy, how good to see you! Delighted, charmed, overjoyed to have you with us. And these are your parents? How nice! Come in, come in. That's right. Step through the gates." Mr. Wonka was clearly just as excited as everybody else. "My name," said the next child going forward, "is Veruca Salt. Oh, my dear Veruca, how do you do? What a pleasure this is. Do you have you do have an interesting name, don't you? I always thought of Veruca was sort of a wart that you got on the sole of your foot. But I must be wrong, mustn't I? How pretty you look in that lovely mink coat. I'm I'm so glad you could come. Dear me, is this is going to be such an exciting day. I do hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. I know you will. Your father? How are you, Mr. Salt and Mrs. Salt? Overjoyed to see you. Yes, the ticket is quite in order. Please go in." The next two children, Violet Beauregard and Mike TV, came forward to have their tickets examined and then have their arms practically pumped pumped off their shoulders by the energetic Mr. Wonka. And last of it was the nervous voice whispered, "Charlie Bucket." "Charlie!" cried Mr. Wonka. "Well, well, well. So you are. You're the one who found your ticket only yesterday, aren't you?" "Yes, yes, I read all about it this morning in the papers. Just in time, my dear boy. I'm so glad and so happy for you. And this, your grandfather? Delighted to meet you, sir. Overjoyed, enraptured, enchanced. All right. Exciting. Is every excellent. Is everybody in now? Five children. Yes, good. Now we always now will you please follow me? Our tour is about to begin. But do keep together. Please don't wander off by yourself. I shouldn't like to lose any of you at this stage of the process. Oh dear me, no." Charlie glanced back over his shoulder and saw the great iron entrance gate slowly closing behind him. The crowd on the other side were still pushing and shouting. Charlie took a last look at them, then the gates closed. With a clang, all sight of the outside world disappeared. "Here we are!" cried Mr. Wonka, trotting along in front of the group. Through this big red door, please. That's right. It's it's nice and warm inside. I have to keep it warm inside the factory because all of my workers are used to an extremely hot climate. They can't stand the cold. They'll perish if they went outside in this weather. They'll freeze to death. But who are these workers? Asked Augustus. All in good time, my dear boy, said Mr. Wonka, smiling at Augustus. Be patient. You shall see everything as we go along. Are we all inside? Good. Would you mind closing the door? Thank you. Charlie Bucket found himself standing in the long corridor that stretched away in front of him, as far as he could see. The corridor was so wide that a car could easily have been driven along it. The walls were pale pink, and the lighting was soft and pleasant. How lovely and warm, whispered Charlie. I know, and what a marvelous smell, answered Grandpa Joe, taking a long, deep sniff. All the most wonderful smells in the world seemed to be mixed up in the air around them. The smell of roasting coffee and burnt sugar, and the melting chocolate and mint and violets and crushed hazelnuts and apple blossom and caramel and lemon peel, and far away in the distance from the heart of the great factory came a muffled roar of energy, as though some monstrous gigantic machines were spinning its wheels at breakneck speed. Now this, my dear children, said Mr. Wonka, raising his voice above the noise. This is the main corridor. Will you please hang your coats and hats on those pegs over there? And then follow me. That way. Good. Everyone ready? Come on then. Here we go. He trotted off rapidly down the corridor, with the tails of his plum-covered velvet coat flapping behind him, and his visitors all hurried after him. It was quite a large party of people. When you came to think of it, there were 9 grown-ups and 5 children, 14 in all. So you can imagine that there were a good deal of pushing and shoving as they hustled and bustled down the passage, trying to keep up with the swift little finger in front of them. Come on, cried Mr. Wonka. Get to move on. We will never get around today if you all dwaddle like that. Soon as he turned right of the main corridor into another slightly narrowed passage, he then turned left. He then turned left again, then right, then left, then right, then right, then left. The place was a gigantic, rapid warren with passengers leading this way and that in every direction. Don't you let go of my hand, Charlie, whispered Grandpa Joe. Notice how all these passages were sloping downwards, called Mr. Wonka. We're we're now going underneath ground. We're now going underground. All the most important rooms in my factory are deep below the surface. Why is that? Somebody asked. There wouldn't be nearly enough space for them on top, answered Mr. Wonka. These rooms we are going to be we're going to see are enormous. They're larger than football fields. No building in the world would be big enough to house all of them. But down here, underneath the ground, I've got all the space I want. There's no limits. So as long as I hollow it out, Mr. Wonka turned right, then he turned left. He turned right again. The passengers sloping steeper and steeper down the hill. And then suddenly, Mr. Wonka stopped. In front of him, there was a shiny metal door. The party crowded round on the door. In the large letters, it said, "The Chocolate Room." Chapter 15. The Chocolate Room. An important room this is, cried Mr. Wonka, taking a bunch of keys out of his pocket and slipping one into the keyhole of the door. This is the nerve center of the whole factory, the heart of the whole business, and so beautiful, I insist upon my rooms being beautiful. I can't endure ugliness in this factory. In we go then, but do be careful, my dear children. Don't lose your heads. Don't get overexcited. Keep very calm. Mr. Wonka opened the door. 5 children and 9 grown-ups pushed their ways in. And oh, what an amazing sight it was. Now met their eyes. They're looking down upon a lovely valley. There are green meadows on either side of the valley, and along the bottom of it flowed a great brown river. What is more, there was a tremendous waterfall. Halfway along the river, a steep cliff which the water curled and rolled in a solid sheet, and then went crashing down into a boiling, curling whirlpool of froth and spray. Below the waterfall, and this was most astonishing sight of all, a whole mess of enormous glass pipes were dangling down into the river from somewhere high up in the ceiling. They were enormous. Those pipes must have been there must have been dozens of them at least, and they all were sucking up the brownish muddy water from the river, carrying it away to goodness knows where. And because they were made of glass, you could see the liquid flowing and the bubbling along inside them. And above the noise of the waterfall, you could hear the never-ending sucking, sucking, sucking sound of the pipes as they did their work. Graceful trees and bushes were growing along the riverbanks. Weeping willows and alders and tall clumps of rhodiosus with their pink and red and their malivum blossoms. In the meadows where there were thousands of buttercups. "There!" cried Mr. Wonka, dancing up and down and pointing his gold-topped cane at the great brown river. "It's all chocolate! Every drop of that river is hot melted chocolate of the finest quality, and very finest quality. There's enough chocolate in here to fill everyone's bathtubs in the entire country, and all that swimming pools as well. Isn't it terrific? And just look at my pipes. They suck up the chocolate and all carry it away to all the other rooms in the factory where there is needed. Thousands of gallons an hour, my dear children. Thousands and thousands of gallons." The children and their parents were too flabbergasted to speak, and they were staggering, they were dumbfounded, they were bewildered and dazzled. They were completely bewildered by the hugeness of the whole thing. They were simply stood and they simply stood and stared. "The waterfall is most important," Mr. Wonka went on. "It mixes the chocolate, it curls it up, and pours it into beats it, and it makes it lightly and frothy. No other factory in the world mixes its chocolate by waterfall. But it's the only way to do it properly. The only way. And do you like my trees? He cried, pointing with his stick. And my lovely bushes. Don't you think they look pretty? I told you, I hated ugliness. And of course, all and of course, they are all edible, all made of something different and delicious. And do you like my meadows? Do you like my grass and my buttercups and the grass you're standing on, my dear little ones? It is made of a new kind of soft, minty sugar that I've just invented. I call it swudged. Try a blade, please do. It's delectable. Automatically, everyone bent down and picked up blade of grass. Everybody. And that is, except Augustus Gloop, who took a big handful. And Violet Beauregard, before tasting her blade of grass, took out the world record breaking chewing gum out of her mouth and stuck it carefully behind her ear. Isn't it wonderful? Whispered Charlie. Hasn't it gotten a wonderful taste, Grandpa? I could eat the whole field, said Grandpa Joe, grinning with delight. I could go around on all fours and eat like a cow and eat every blade of grass in the field. Try a buttercup, cried Mr. Wonka. They're even nicer. Suddenly the air was filled with screams of excitement. The screams came from Veruca Salt, who she, she was pointing frantically to the other side of the river. Look, look, look over there, she screamed. What is it? He's moving. He's walking. It's a little person. It's a little man. Down there, below the waterfall. Everyone stopped picking buttercups and stared across the river. She's right, Grandpa, cried Charlie. It is a little man. Can you see him? I see him, Charlie, said Grandpa Joe excitingly. And now everybody started shouting at once. There are two of them. My gosh, there is. And there's more than two. There's one, two, three, four, five. What are they doing? Where do they come from? Who are they? The children and parents alike rushed down to the edges of the river to get a closer look. Aren't they fantastic? No hitcher than no higher than my knee. Look at their funny long hair. The tiny men. They they were no larger than medium-sized dolls. Had stopped what they were doing, and now were standing back across the river at the visitors. One of them pointed towards the children, and then he whispered something to the other four, and all five of them bursted into pearls of laughter. But but they can't be real people, Charlie said. Well, of course they're real people, Mr. Wonka answered. They're Oompa Loompas. Chapter 16. The Oompa Loompas. Oompa Loompas? Everyone said at once. Oompa Loompas? Imported directly from Oompa Land, said Mr. Wonka proudly. There's no such place, said Mrs. Salt. Excuse me, my dear lady? But, Mr. Wonka, cried Mrs. Salt, I'm a teacher in geography. Then you'll know all about it, said Miss Wonka. And oh, what a terrible country it is! Nothing but thick jungles infested by the most dangerous beasts in the entire world. Hog snogglers and snogwangers and those terrible wicked wangdoodles. A wangdoodle could eat 10 Oompa Loompas for breakfast and come clopping back for a second helping. When I went there, I found the little Oompa Loompas living in tree houses. They're bad to live. They had to live in tree houses to escape from the wangdoodles and hornsnogglers and the snogwangers. and they were practically starving to death. They were living on green caterpillars, and the caterpillars tasted revolting, said. The Oompa Loompas spent every moment of their days climbing through the treetops, looking for other things to mash up with the caterpillars to make them taste better. Red beetles, for instance, and, and the exepidious leaves, and the bark of bong bong trees, all of them beastly, and not quite so beastly as the caterpillars. Poor little Oompa Loompas. The one food they've longed for more than more than any other was the cacao beans. But but they couldn't get it, and Oompa Loompa was lucky if he found 3 or 4 cacao beans a year. But oh, they craved them. They used to dream about cacao beans all night and talk about them all day. You've only had to mention the word cacao to an Oompa Loompa, and he would start uh, dribbling from the mouth. The cacao beans, Mr. Wonka continued, which grows on the cacao trees, happens to be the thing from which all chocolate is made. You cannot make chocolate without the cacao beans. The cacao bean is chocolate. I myself use billions of cacao beans every week in this factory, and so, my dear children, as soon as soon as I discovered the Oompa Loompas were crazy for this particular food, I climbed up to the treehouse's village and poked my head in through the door of the treehouse belonging to the leader of the tribe. The poor little fellow looked thin and starved, was sitting there trying to eat a bowl full of mashed up green caterpillars without being sick. Look here, I said, speaking not English, of course, but oom- oomp, but Oomplish. But in Oomplish. Look here, as if look here, if you and all your people will come back to my country and live in my factory, you can have all the cacao beans you want. I've got mountains of them in my storage houses. You can have cacao beans for every meal. You can gorge yourself silly on them. I'll even pay your wages in cacao beans if you wish. You really mean it? Asked the Oompa Loompa leader, leaping up from his chair. Of course, I mean it, I said. And you can have chocolate as well. Chocolate tastes even better than cacao beans because it got milk and sugar added. The little man gave a great whoop of joy and threw his bowl of mashed caterpillars right out of the treehouse window. It's a deal, he cried. Come on, let's go. So I shipped them all over here. Every man, woman, and child in, um, in the Oompa Loompa tribe. It was easy. I smuggled them over in large packages with holes in them, and they got here safely. They're all wonderful workers. They all speak English now. They love dancing and music. They all they're all they are always making up songs. I expect you will hear a good deal of singing today from time to time. I must warn you though, they are rather mischievous. They like jokes. They still wear the same kind of clothing they wore in the jungle. They insist upon it. The men, as you can see for yourselves, across the river, wear only deer skin, the women wear leaves, and the children wear nothing at all. The women use fresh leaves every day. Daddy, shouted Veruca Salt, the little girl who got everything she wanted. Daddy, I want an Oompa Loompa. I want you to give me an Oompa Loompa. I want an Oompa Loompa right away. I want to take it home with me. Go, Daddy. Give me an Oompa Loompa. Now, my pet, her father said to her. We mustn't interrupt Mr. Wonka. But I want an Oompa Loompa, screamed Ruka. All right, Ruka, all right. I can't get you it. I can't get it for you this second. Please be patient. I'll see you have one before the day is out. Augustus, shouted Mrs. Gloop. Augustus, sweetheart. I don't think you had better do that, Augustus, as you might have guessed. The quietly snuck down to the edge of the river, and he was now kneeling on the river bank, scooping hot melted chocolate into his mouth as fast as he could. Chapter 17. Augustus Gloop goes up the pipe. When Mr. Wonka turned around and saw what Augustus Gloop was doing, he cried out, "Oh, please, Augustus, please, I beg you not to do that. My chocolate must be untouched by human hands. Augustus!" called out Mrs. Gloop. "Didn't you hear what the man said? Come away from that river at once." "This stuff is terrific," said Augustus, talking not so silently notice of his mother or Mr. Wonka. "Oh boy, I need a bucket to drink it properly." "Augustus!" cried Mr. Wonka, hopping down and waggling his stick in the air. You must come away. You're dirtying my chocolate." "Augustus!" cried Mrs. Gloop. "Augustus!" cried Mr. Gloop. But Augustus was deaf to everything except the call of his enormous stomach. He was now lying full length on the ground with his head far out over the river, or lapping up the chocolate like a dog. "Augustus!" shouted Mrs. Gloop. "You'll be giving that nasty cold of yours to a million people all over the country." "Be careful, Augustus!" shouted Mr. Gloop. You're leaning too far out." Mr. Gloop was absolutely right, for suddenly there was a shriek and then a splash, and into the river went Augustus Gloop, and in 1 second he had disappeared underneath the brown surface. "Save him!" screamed Mrs. Gloop, going white in the face and waving her umbrella about. "He'll drown! He can't swim a yard! Save him! Save him!" "Good heavens, woman," said Mr. Gloop. "I'm not diving in there. I've got my best suit on." Augustus Gloop's face came up again to the surface, panting brown with chocolate. "Help! Help! Help!" he yelled. "Fish me out!" "Don't just stand there," Mrs. Gloop screamed at Mr. Gloop. "Do something!" "I am doing something," said Mr. Gloop, who is now taking his jacket off and getting ready to dive in to the chocolate. But while he was doing this, the wretched boy was being sucked closer and closer to the mouth of one of the great pipes that was dangling down into the river. Then, all at once, a powerful suction took hold of him completely, and he was pulled under the surface and then into the mouth of a pipe. The crowd on the riverbank went breathlessly to see where he would go. "There he goes!" somebody shouted, pointing upward, and sure enough, because the pipe was made of glass, Augustus Gloop could be seen in shooting up inside, head first like a torpedo. "Help! Murder! Police!" screamed Mrs. Gloop. Augustus, come back here at once. Where are you going?" "It's a wonder to me," said Mr. Gloop, "how that pipe is big enough for him to go through." "It isn't big enough," said Charlie Bucket. "Oh dear, look, he's slowing down." "So he is," said Grandpa Joe. "Is he going to be stuck?" said Charlie. I think he is," said Grandpa Joe. By gosh, he has stuck," said Charlie. "In his stomach. It's his stomach that has done it," said Mr. Gloop. "He's blocked the whole pipe," said Grandpa Joe. "Smash the pipe!" yelled Mrs. Gloop, still waving her umbrella. "Augustus, come out of there at once!" The watchers below could see the chocolate swishing around the boy in the pipe, and they could see it building up behind him in a solid mass, pushing against the blockage. The pressure was terrific. Something had to give. Something did give, and that something was Augustus. Whoof! He shot up, up he shot again, like a bullet in a barrel of a gun. He disappeared. He disappeared! Yelled Mrs. Gloop. "Where does that pipe go? Quick, call the fire brigade!" "Calm down," Mr. Wonka said. "Keep calm, my dear lady. Keep calm. There is no danger. No danger whatsoever. Augustus has gone on a little journey. That's all. A, a most interesting little journey. But he'll come out of it just fine. You wait and see." "How can can he possibly come out just fine?" snapped Mrs. Gloop. He'll be made into marshmallows in 5 seconds." "Impossible!" cried Mr. Wonka. "Unthinkable! Un in unconclusive! Absurd! He could never be made into marshmallows." "And why not? May I ask?" shouted Mrs. Gloop. "Because that pipe doesn't go to the marshmallow room," Miss Wonka answered. It doesn't go anywhere near it. That pipe, the one Augustus went up, happens to lead directly into a room where I make the most delicious strawberry flavored chocolate coated fudge. Then he'll be made into strawberry flavored chocolate covered fudge," screamed Mrs. Gloop. "My poor Augustus, is they'll be selling him by the pound all over the country tomorrow." Quite quite right," said Mr. Gloop. "I know I'm right," said Mrs. Gloop. "It's beyond on a joke," said Mr. Gloop. "Mr. Wonka doesn't seem to think so," cried Mrs. Gloop. "Just look at him. He's laughing his head off. How dare you laugh like that while my boy has just gone up the pipe, you monster!" shrieked, pointing her umbrella at Mr. Wonka as though she was going to run him through. "You think it's a joke, do you? You think that sucking my boy up into your fudge room like that is just one great big colossal joke?" "He'll be practically safe," said Mr. Wonka, giggling slightly. "He'll never be chocolate fudge," shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "Never!" cried Mr. Wonka. "Of course he will!" shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "I wouldn't allow it!" cried Mr. Wonka. "And why not?" shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "Because it'll just taste terrible," said Mr. Wonka. Just imagine it. Just imagine it. Augustus flavored chocolate coated gloop. No one would buy it." "They most certainly will," cried Mr. Gloop indigenously. I don't want to think about it," shrieked Mrs. Gloop. "Nor do I," said Mr. Wonka. "And I promise you, madam, that your darling boy is perfectly safe. He's just perfectly safe." Then where is he?" snapped Mrs. Gloop. "Lead me to him this instant." Mr. Wonka turned around and clicked his fingers sharply. Clicked 3 times immediately. Then an Oompa Loompa appeared as if from nowhere and stood behind him. The Oompa Loompa bowed and smiled, showing beautifully white teeth. His skin was rosy white. His long hair was brownish, was golden brown, and the top of his head came just above the height of Mr. Wonka's knee. He wore the usual deerskin slung over his shoulder. Now listen to me, said Mr. Wonka, looking down at the tiny man. I want you to take Mr. and Mrs. Gloop up to the fudge room and help them find their son Augustus. He's just gone up the pipe. The Oompa Loompa took one look at Mrs. Gloop and exploded into pearls of laughter. Oh, do be quiet, said Mr. Wonka. Control yourself. Pull yourself together. Mrs. Gloop doesn't think it's 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 at all is funny. You can't say that, said Mrs. Gloop. Go straight to the fudge room, said Mr. Wonka to the Oompa Loompa. And when you get there, take a long stick and start poking around the big chocolate mixing barrel. I'm almost certain you'll find them in there. But you better look sharp. You'll have to hurry. If you leave him in the chocolate mixing barrel too long, he'll be liable to get poured out into the fudge boiler. And that's really would be a disaster, wouldn't it? My fudge would become quite unedible. Mrs. Gloop let out a shriek of fury. I'm joking, Mr. Wonka giggled madly behind his beard. I didn't mean it. Forgive me. I'm sorry. Goodbye, Mrs. Gloop and Mr. Gloop. Goodbye. I'll see you later. As Mr. and Mrs. Gloop and their tiny escorted hurried away, the five Oompa Loompas on the far side of the river suddenly began hopping and dancing about, beating wildly upon the number of very small drums. Augustus Gloop, they cried. Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop. Grandpa, cried Charlie. Listen to them, Grandpa. What are they doing? Shh, whispered Grandpa Joe. I think they're going to sing us a song. Augustus Gloop, chanted the Oompa Loompas. Augustus Gloop, Augustus Gloop, the great big greedy nincompoop. For how long could we allow this beast to gorge and guzzle, feed and feast on everything he wanted to do? Great Scott, it simply wouldn't do. However long this pig might live, we 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 are positively he'd never give even the smallest bit of fun or happiness to anyone. So what we do in case such as this, we'll use the gentle touch and carefully we'll take the brat and turn him into something that will give great pleasure to us all, a doll for instance, or a ball, or marbles, or a rocking horse. This revolting boy, of course, was so unentably vile, so greedy, so vile, so infantile, he left a most danger he left the most disgusting taste inside our mouths. So in a haste we choose a thing that he'll may that that what may would take the the nasty taste away. Come on, we cried. The time is right to send him shooting up the pipe. He has to go. He has to be, and very soon he's going to see. Inside the room in which he's gone, some funny things are going on. But don't, dear children, be alarmed. Augustus Gloop will not be harmed. Although, of course, we must admit he will be altered quite a bit. He'll he he'll be quite changed from what he has been when he's going through the fudge machine. Slowly the wheels go round and round. The cogs begin to grind and pound. A hundred a hundred knives to slice and slice. We'll add some sugar or cream and spice. We'll boil him for a minute more until we're absolutely sure that that all the greed and all the gall is boiled away for once and for all. Then he'll come then he'll becomes and now by grace, a miracle has taken place. The this boy who only just before was loaded by men from shore to shore. This greedy brute, this lousy ear, is loved by people everywhere. For who can bathe or bear to grudge against a luscious bit of fudge? I told you they love singing, cried Mr. Wonka. Aren't they delightful? Aren't they charming? But you mustn't believe a word they say. All it's all nonsense, every bit of it. Are the Oompa Loompas really joking? Grandpa asked Charlie. Of course they're joking, answered Grandpa Joe. They must be joking. At least I hope they're joking. Don't you? Chapter 18. Down the Chocolate River. Off we go, cried Mr. Wonka. Hurry up, everybody. Follow me to the next room. And please don't worry about Augustus Gloop. He'll bound to come out in the wash. They always do. We shall have to make the next part of the journey by boat. Here she comes. Look. A steamy mist was rising up and now from the great warm chocolate river. And out of the mist appeared suddenly a most fantastic pink boat. It was a large open rowboat with a tail front and tall back, like a Viking boat of old. And it was such a shining, sparkling, glistening pink color, the whole thing looked as though it would be made out of a bright pink glass. There were many oars on each side of it, and the boat came closer, and the watchers on the river bank could see that the oars were being pulled by masses of Oompa Loompas, at least 10 of them on each oar. This is my private yacht, cried Mr. Wonka, beaming with pleasure. I made her by hollowing out an enormous boiled sweet. Isn't she beautiful? See how see how she comes curtling through the river. The gleaming pink boiled sweet boat glided up the riverbank. 100 Oompa Loompas rested on each oar and stared at the visitors. They then suddenly, for some reason best known to themselves, all began to burst out in shrieks of laughter. What's so funny? Asked Violet Beauregard. Oh, I don't know about them, cried Mr. Wonka. They're always laughing. I think it's everything a colossal joke. Jump into the boat, all of you. Come on, hurry up. As soon as every as soon as everyone was safely in, the Oompa Loompas pushed the boat away from the bank and began to row swiftly down the river. Hey there, Mike TV shouted it, Mr. Wonka. Please, do not lick the boat with your tongue. It's only made it'll only make it sticky. Daddy, said Ruka, I want a boat like this. I want you to buy me a pink boiled sweet boat exactly like Mr. Wonka's. I want a lot of Oompa Loompas to row me about, and I want Chocolate River. I want. She wants a good kick in the pants, whispered Grandpa Joe to Charlie. The old man was sitting in the back of the boat. Oh, and little Charlie Bucket was right beside him. Charlie was holding tightly onto his grandfather's bony hand, and he was in a whirl of excitement. Everything that he had seen so far, the great chocolate river, the waterfall, the huge sucking pipes, and the candy meadow, and the Oompa Loompas, the beautiful pink boat, and most of all, Mr. Willy Wonka himself, had all been astonishing, that he began to wonder whether there could possibly be any more astonishment left. Where we're going now, where are we going to see? And what in the world is going to happen in the next room? Isn't it marvelous? Said Grandpa Joe, grinning at Charlie. Charlie nodded and smiled up up at the old man. Suddenly, Mr. Wonka, who was sitting on Charlie's other side, reached down into the bottom of the boat and picked up a large mug, dipped it into the river, filled it with chocolate, and handed it to Charlie. Drink this, he said. It'll do you good. You look starved to death. Then Mr. Wonka filled a second mug and gave it to Grandpa Joe. You too, he said. You look like a skeleton. What's the matter? Has there been anything to eat in your house lately? Not much, Grandpa Joe said Grandpa Joe. Charlie put the mug to his lips, and the rich, warm, creamy chocolate ran down his throat into his empty tummy. His whole body, from head to toe, began to tingle with pleasure. A feeling so intense happiness spread all over him. You like it? Said Mr. Wonka. Oh, it's wonderful, Charlie said. The creamiest, loveliest chocolate I've ever tasted, said Grandpa Joe, smacking his lips. That's because it's been mixed by waterfall, Mr. Wonka told him. The boat sped on down the river. The river the river was getting narrow, and there was some kind of dark tunnel ahead. A great round tunnel that looked like an enormous pipe. The river was running right into the tunnel, and so was the boat. Row on! Mr. Wonka jumped up, waving his stick in the air. Full speed ahead! With with the Oompa Loompas rowing faster than ever, the boat shot into the pitch dark tunnel, and all the passengers screamed with excitement. How can they see where we're going? Shrieked Violet Beauregard. There's no knowing where they're going, cried Mr. Wonka, hooting with laughter. Here's the moment you've all been waiting for. There's no earthly way of knowing which direction they are going. There's no knowing where they're rowing, or which way the river's flowing. Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing, and they're certainly not showing any signs that they are slowing. He's off his rocker, shouted one of the fathers against, and then the other parents joined in chorus, a frightened shouting. He's crazy, they shouted. He's balmy, he's nutty, he's screwy, he's batty, he's dippy, he's dotty, he's daffy, he's goofy, he's beany, he's buggy, he's wacky, he's loony. No, he's not, said Grandpa Joe. Switch on the lights, shouted Mr. Wonka, and suddenly the lights came on, and the whole tunnel was brightly lit, and Charlie could see where they were indeed, inside a gigantic pipe, and the great upward curves walls of the pipe were pure white and spotlessly clean. The river of chocolate was flowing very fast inside the pipe, and the Oompa Loompas were all rowing like crazy, and the boat was rocking against the furious place. Mr. Wonka was jumping up and down in the back of the boat and calling to the rowers to row faster and faster. He seemed to love the sensation of whizzing through a white tunnel in a pink boat on a chocolate river. He clapped his hands and laughed, and kept glancing at his passengers to see if they were enjoying it as much as he was. Look, Grandpa, Charlie cried. There's a door in the wall. It was a green door, and it was set into the wall of the tunnel just above the level of the river. As they flashed past, there was just enough time to read the writing on the writing on the door. Storage room number 52, it said. All all the creams, dairy cream, whipped cream, violet cream, coffee cream, pineapple cream, vanilla cream, hair cream. Hair cream, cried Mike TV. You don't use hair cream. Row on, shouted Mr. Wonka. There's no time to answer silly questions. They streaked past a black door, storeroom number 71, it said on it. Whips. All sizes and all shapes and sizes. Whips? Cried Ruka Salt. What on earth do you use whip for? For whipping cream, of course, said Miss Wonka. How can you have whipped cream without whips? Whipped cream isn't whipped cream at all unless it's been whipped with whips. Just as a poached egg isn't a poached egg unless it's been stolen from the woods in the dead of night. Row on, please. They passed a yellow door which said Storage number 77. All the beans, cacao beans, coffee beans, jelly beans, and it has beans. Has beans, cried Violet Beauregard. You're one yourself, Mr. Wonka said. There's no time for arguing. Press on. But 5 seconds later, arrow went up. Brightly red door came into sight ahead. He suddenly waved his golden top cane in the air and shouted, "Stop the boat!" Oh, fuck. Okay, there goes the hat. We are down a hat for this reading. So everybody say goodbye to the hat. This is certainly a great day, I guess. Hope all of you are having a great day, obviously. Chapter 19, The Inventing Room, Everlasting Gobstoppers and Hair Toffee. When Mr. Wonka shouted, "Stop the boat!" the Oompa Loompas jammed their oars into the river and backed the water fiercely. The boat stopped. The Oompa Loompas guided the boat along the red door. On the red door, it said, "Inventing Room, Private, Keep Out." Mr. Wonka took a key from his pocket, leaned over the side of the boat, and put the key into the keyhole. "This is the most important room in the entire factory," he said. "All my most secret new inventions are cooking and steamering in here." Old Fickelgruber would give his front teeth to be allowed inside here for just 3 minutes. So would Prodnose and Slugworth and all the other rotten chocolate makers. But now listen to me. I want no messing around. When you go in, no touching, no meddling, no tasting. Is that all? Is that agreed? Yes, yes, the children cried. We won't touch a thing. Now, up to now, Mr. Wonka said, nobody else, not even an Oompa Loompa, has ever been allowed in here. He opened the door and stepped inside and stepped out of the boat into the room. The four children and their parents scrambled after him. Don't touch, shouted Mr. Wonka, and don't knock anything over. Charlie Bucket stared around at the gigantic room in which he now found himself in. The place was like a witch's kitchen. All about, black metal pots were boiling and bubbling, and huge stoves and kettles, they were all hissing, and the pans were sizzling, and the strange iron machines were clanking and sputtering, and and there were pipes running all over the ceiling and walls, and the whole place was filled with smoke and steam, the delicious, rich smells. Mr. Wonka suddenly be- became even more excited than usual, and anyone could see that this was the room he loved best of all. He was hopping about along among the saucepans and the machines like a child among his Christmas presents, not knowing which thing to look at first. He lifted the lid it from the huge pot and took a sniff. He then reached over and dipped a finger into the barrel of sticky yellow stuff. He then tasted and then skipped across to another machine and turned half a dozen knobs this way and that. He then peered anxiously through the glass door of a gigantic oven, rubbing his hands and and, and clicking with delight at what he saw inside. He then ran over to another machine, a small shiny affair that was keeping going. Plut 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 plut, and everything, and every time it went plut, a large green marble of dropped out into a basket and on the floor. At least it looked like a marble. Everlasting gobstoppers! Mr. Wonka cried proudly. They're completely new. I have invented them for children who are given very little pocket money. You can put an everlasting gobstopper in your mouth and you can suck it and 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 it will never get any smaller. It's like gum, cried Violet Beauregard. It is not like gum, Mr. Wonka said. Gum is for chewing, and if you tried chewing one of these gobstoppers here, you'll break your teeth off. But they taste terrific, and they change colors once a week. You'll never get they they never get any smaller, and they never disappear. Never. At least I don't think they do. There's still there's one of them being ta- tested this very moment in the testing room next door. And Noompa is sucking it, and he's been sucking it for nearly a year now without stopping, and it's still just as good as ever. Now over here, Mr. Wonka went on, skipping excitingly across the room to opposing wall. Over here, I'm inventing a completely new line in toffees. He stopped beside a large saucepan. The saucepan was full of thick, gooey, purplish uh, treacle, boiling and bubbling. And standing on his toes, little Charlie could just see inside. That's hair toffee, cried Mr. Wonka. You eat just one tiny bite of that, and in exactly half an hour, a brand new, luscious, thick, silky, beautiful crop of hair will start growing out all over the top of your head, and a mustache, and a beard too. A beard, cried Rukasol. Who wants a beard, for heaven's sake? It would suit you very well, Mr. Wonka said. But unfortunately, the mixture is not quite right yet. I've got, I've got it too strong. It works too well. I tried it on an Oompa Loompa yesterday in the testing room, and immediately a huge beard started shooting out of his chin. And the beard grew so fast that soon it was tangling all over the floor and a thick, hairy carpet. It was growing faster than we could cut it. In the end, we just had to use a lawnmower to keep it in check. But I'll get the mixture right soon. And when I do, there'll be no excuse for any more of those little boys and girls going about with bald heads. Mr. Wonka, said Mike TV. Little boys and girls never do go about with. Don't argue, my dear children. Please don't argue, cried Mr. Wonka. It is a waste of precious time. Now over here, will step if you step this way, I'll show you something that I'm terrifically proud of. Oh, and do be careful. Don't knock anything over. Stand by. Chapter 20: The Great Gum Machine. Fuck. Yes, chapter 20: The Great Fuck. Chapter 20. You could tell it's been 3 hours. Chapter 20: The Great Gum Machine. Wonka led the party over to a gigantic machine that stood in the very center of the inventing room. It was a mountain of gleaming metal that it was a tower of. I'm going insane. Mr. Wonka led the party over to a gigantic machine that stood in the very center of the inventing room. It was a mountain of gleaming metal that towered high above the children and their parents. Out in the very top of it, there sprouted hundreds and hundreds of thin glass tubes, and the glass tubes all curled downwards and came together in a bunch of hungs suspended over an enormous round tub as a big big as a bath. Here we go, cried Mr. Wonka, and he pressed three different buttons on the side of the machine. A second later, a mighty rumbling sound came from inside it, and the whole machine began to shake most frighteningly. The steam began to hiss out out of it all over, and then suddenly the watchers noticed that runny stuff was pouring down out the insides of all the hundreds of little glass tubes and squirting out into a great tub below. And in every single tub, the runny stuff was of a different color, so that all the colors of the rainbow, and many others as well, came sloshing and splashing into the tub. It was a lovely sight, and when the tub was nearly full, Mr. Wonka pressed another button, and immediately the runny stuff stopped running, and all the tubes rambling sound disappeared, and a whizzing, whirling noise took its place, and then a giant whizzing started whizzing round inside the enormous tub, mixing up all the different colors liquids into an ice cream soda. Gradually, the mixture began to forth. It became frothier and frothier, and it turned from blue to white to green to brown to yellow and back to blue again. Watch, said Mr. Wonka. Click went the machine, and the whizzing stopped whizzing, and now came a sort of sucking noise, and very quickly all the blue frothy mixture in a huge basin was sucked back into the stomach of the machine. There was a moment of silence. There were a few queer rumblings were heard, then silence again. Then suddenly the machine let out monstrous, mighty groans, and at the same moment a tiny drawer, no bigger than the drawer in the slot machine, popped out of popped out of the side of the machine, and in the mat drawer lay something so small and thin and gray that everyone thought it must have been a mistake. The thing looked like a little strip of gray cardboard. The children and their parents stared at the little gray strip lying in the drawer. You mean that's all? Said Mike TV, disgusted. That's all, answered Mr. Wonka, gazing proudly at the result. Don't you know what this is? There's a pause, and then suddenly Violet, Violet Beauregard, Violet Beauregard, or the goofy gum chewing girl, let out a yell of excitement. By gum, it's gum! She shrieked. It's a stick of chewing gum. Right you are, cried Mr. Wonka, slapping Violet hard on the back. It's stick of gum. It's a stick of the most amazing, most fabulous, most sensational gum in the world. Chapter 21. Goodbye, Violet. This gum, Mr. Wonka went on, on is the latest i- is the la- is my latest, my greatest, my most fantastic invention. It's a chewing gum meal. It's the tiny little strip of gum laying there is a whole three-course dinner all by itself. What sort of nonsense is this? Said one of the fathers. My dear sir, cried Miss Wonka, when I start selling this gum in all shops, it'll certainly change everything. It'll be the most it'll it'll, it'll be the end of all kitchens and all cooking. There will be no more marketing. There'll be no more market marketing to do. There'll be no more buying the meats from the groceries. There'll be no knives and forks at meal times. No plates, no washing up, no garbage, no mess. Just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum, and and that's all you'll ever need at breakfast, lunch, and supper. This piece of gum I've I've just made happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. But you can have almost everything you want. What do you mean it's tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie? Said Violet Beauregard. If you were starting to, if you were to start to chew it, said Miss Wonka, then that's exactly what you would get on the menu. It's absolutely amazing. You can actually feel the food going down your throat and into your tummy, and you can taste it perfectly, and it fills you up. It satisfies you. It's terrific. It's utterly impossible, said Veruca Salt. It's just so long as it's gum, shouted Violet Beauregard. Just as long just as long as it's a piece of gum, I can chew it, then that's for me, said and quietly she took her world record piece gum out of her mouth and stuck it behind her ear. Come on, Mr. Wonka, she said. Hand over this magic gum of yours and we'll see if the thing works. Now, Violet, said Mrs. Beauregard, her mother, don't don't let's do anything silly, Violet. I want the gum, said Violet, said obstinately. What's so silly? I would rather you didn't take it, Mr. Wonka told her gently. You, you see, I haven't gotten it quite right yet. There's still. Um, I still have. Goddamn. Where am I? Okay. Uh, you see, I still haven't gotten it right, quite right yet. There's still. There's still one or two things. Oh, to heck with that, said Violet. And suddenly, before Mr. Wonka could stop her, she snot out a fat hand and grabbed the stick of gum out of the little drawer and popped it into her mouth at once. Her huge, well-trained jaw started chewing away on it like a pair of tongs. Don't! Cried Mr. Wonka. Fabulous! Shouted Violet. It's tomato soup. It's hot and creamy and delicious. Right down. Ugh, fuck. My God, it's water. It's beautiful water. I need water. Okay, I'm a bit better. Okay. Uh, she says the word. Okay. Stop, said Mr. Wonka. The gum isn't ready yet. It's not right. It's not right. Of course it's right, said Violet. It's it's working beautifully. Oh my, what lovely soup this is. Spit it out right now, said Mr. Wonka. It's changing, shouted Violet, chewing and grinning both at the same time. The second course is coming up. It's roast beef. It's tender, it's juicy. Oh boy, what a flavor. The baked potato is marvelous too. It's got a crispy skin and it's all filled with butter inside. But how interesting, Violet, said Miss Beauregard. You are a clever girl. Keep chewing, kiddo, said Mr. Beauregard. Keep right on chewing, baby. This is a great day for the Beauregards. Our little girl is the first person in the world to have a chewing gum meal. Everybody watching Violet as she stood there chewing the extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips as they pressed, pressed and unpressed with the chewing, and Grandpa Joe stood back beside him, gasping at the little girl. Mr. Wonka was was waggling his hands and saying, "No, no, no! It isn't right for eating. This isn't right. You mustn't do it." Blueberry pie and cream, shouted Violet. "Here it comes. Oh my, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it. It's as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoons of the most marvelous blueberry pie in the world." "Good heavens, girl!" shrieked Mrs. Beauregard, um, suddenly staring at Violet. "What's happening to your nose?" "Oh, be quiet, mother. Let me finish," said Violet. "It's turning blue," screamed Miss Violet. "Your nose is turning blue as a blueberry. Your mother is white." your your mother is white. Your mother is right," shouted Mr. Beauregard. "Your whole nose is has gone purple." "What do you mean?" said Violet, still chewing away. "Your cheeks," screamed Mrs. Beauregard. "They're turning blue as well, and so is your chin. Your whole face is turning blue." "Spit the gum out at once," ordered Mr. Beauregard. "Mercy! Save us!" yelled Mrs. Beauregard. "The girl's going blue and purple all over. Even her hair is changing color. Violet, you're turning violet, Violet. And this has happened. And what is happening to you? I told you haven't it got. I told you I haven't gotten it quite right," sighed Mr. Wonka, shaking his head sadly. "I'll have. I'll say you haven't," cried Mrs. Beauregard. "Just look at the girl now." Everybody was staring at Violet, and what a terrible particular sight it was. Her face and hand and legs and neck, in fact, the skin all over her body, as well as the great big mop of curly hair, and had turned a brilliant purplish blue, the color of the the color of blueberry juice. "It always goes wrong when it comes to dessert," sighed Miss Wonka. "It's blueberry pie that does it. But I'll get it right one day. You wait and see." "Violet," screamed Miss Bogart, "you're swelling up." "I feel sick," said Violet. "You're swelling up, up." Screamed Mrs. Bogart. Can I? "You're swelling up," screamed Mrs. Beauregard again. "I feel most particular," gasped Violet. "It. I'm not surprised," said Mr. Beauregard. "Great heavens, girl!" Screeched Mrs. Beauregard. "You're blowing up like a balloon." "Like a blueberry," said Mr. Wonka. "Call the doctors," shouted Mr. Beauregard. "Pick her with a pen," said one of the other fathers. "Save her!" cried Mrs. Beauregard, waggling her hand. But there was no saving her now. Her body was swelling up and changing shape at the same rate as within a minute it had turned into nothing less than an enormous round blue ball, a gigantic blueberry, in fact. And all that remained of Violet herself was a tiny pair of eggs, and a tiny pair of arms sticking out of the great round fruit, and a little head on top. "It always happens like that," sighed Mr. Wonka. "I've tried on like 20 Oompa Loompas in testing room, on 20 Oompa Loompas, and every one of them finished up as a blueberry. It's most annoying. I just can't stand it." "But I don't want a blueberry as a daughter," yelled Mrs. Beauregard. Put her back to what she was this instant." Mr. Wonka uh, clicked his fingers, and 10 Oompa Loompas appeared immediately at his side. "Row Mrs. Beauregard to the boat," he said to them, "and take her to the juicing room at once." "The juicing room," said Mrs. Beauregard. "What are they going to do in there?" "Squeeze her," said Mr. Wonka. "We've got to squeeze the juice out of her immediately. After that, we'll just have to see how. After that, we'll just have to see how she comes out. But don't worry, my dear Mrs. Beauregard. We'll get her repaired, and if we'll get her repaired if it's the last thing we'll do. I'm sorry about this. Is all I really am. Already, the 10 Oompa Loompas were rolling the enormous blueberry across the floor of the inventing room and towards the door that led to the chocolate river, where the boat was waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Beauregard hurried after them, and the rest of the party, included little Charlie Bucket and Grandpa Joe, stood absolutely still and watched them go. Listen, whispered Charlie. Listen, Grandpa, the Oompa Loompas in the boat outside. They're starting to sing. The voices of 100 of them singing together came aloud, out clear into the room. Ahem. Dear friends, we surely all agree there's almost nothing worse to see than some repulsive little bum who's always chewing gum. It is very near as bad as those who sit around and pick their nose. So please believe us when we say that chewing gum will never pay. The sticky habit bound to send the chewer to a sticky end. Did any of you ever notice a person called Miss Bigelow? This dreadful woman and saw no wrong. And chewing all day long, she chewed while ba- ba- bathing in the tub, she chewed while dancing at her club, she chewed in church and on the bus. It really, it really was quite luscious. And when she couldn't find her gum, she began to chew up little mouse, or anything anything that happens near a pair of boots, a postman's ear, or other people's underclothes. And once she chewed her boyfriend's nose. She went on chewing till at last her chewing muscles grew so vast. From her face, her giant chin stuck out like a violin. For years and years, she chewed away, consuming 50 packs a day, until one summer eve at last, a horrid business came to pass. Miss Bilal went late to bed. For half an hour she laid and read, chewing and chewing, all the whilst like some great clockwork crocodile. At last she put her gum away upon a special tray, and settled back and went to sleep. She managed she managed this by counting sheep. But now bow strange thou, although she slept, those massive jaws her still kept on chewing and chewing throughout the night, and with even with nothing there to bite. And they were, you see, in such a group, they positively had to move, and very grim it was to bear in a hitch of darkness loud and clear. The sleeping woman, gr- great big trap, open and shutting, snap, snap, snap. Faster and faster, chop, chop, chop. The noise went on and wouldn't stop, and until her jaws decide to pause and open extra wide, and with one most tremendous chew, they bit the lady's tongue in two. Thereafter, just from chewing gum, Miss Abow always dumb, and spent her life shut up in some disgusting sanatorium, and that is why we'll try so hard to save Miss Violet Beauregard from suffering an equal fate. She'll, she's still quite young. It's not too late. Providing she survives the cure, we hope she does. We can't be sure. Ugh. Ugh. That's good water. Now, before I start the next chapter, I just want to say a I this is a random tangent. Gonna just about I'm about to say. Whenever I hear the word violet, the color the color that's always comes to mind is purple. But those who say it's blue, in my words, my question to you: what counts as violet? The dark purple or the dark blue? Fuck, I can't rhyme. What do you consider violet? That shining purple, that shining blue? This is my question for all of you. I'm very stupid. Anyways, chapter 22. Along the corridor. Well, 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 sighed Mr. Willy Wonka. Two naughty little children gone, three good little children left. I think we better get out of this room quickly before we lose anyone else. But Mr. Wonka, said Charlie Bucket anxiously, will Violet Beauregard ever be all right again? Will she always be Blueberry? They'll dejuice her in time. They'll dejuice her in no time flat, declared Mr. Wonka. They'll roll her into the dejuicing machine and she'll come out as thin as a whistle. But will she still be blue all over? Asked Charlie. She'll be purple, cried Mr. Wonka. A fine rich purple from head to toe. But there you are. That's what comes from chewing disgusting gum all day. If you think gum is disgusting, said Mike TV, then why do you make it in your factory? I do wish you wouldn't mumble, said Mr. Wonka. I can't hear a word that you're saying. Come on, off we go. Hurry up, follow me. We're going to the corridors again. And and so saying, Mr. Wonka scuttled across the far end of the inventing room. They went through a small secret door hidden behind a lot of pipes and stoves. The three remaining children, Veruca Salt, Mike TV, and Charlie Bucket together, the five remaining grown-ups followed after him. Charlie Bucket saw that they were now back in one long pink corridor with many other pink corridors leading out of it. Mr. Wonka was rushing along in front, turning left and right and left, and Grandpa Joe was saying, "Keep a go hold of my hand, Charlie. It will be terrible to get lost in here." Mr. Wonka was saying, "No time, no time for any more messing around. We'll never get anywhere at this rate. We've been going." And on he rushed down the endless pink corridors with his black top hat perched on the top of his head, and his plum-colored vest coattails flying out behind him like a flag in the wind. They passed another corridor, then another, and there were doors every 20 paces or so along the corridor now. And they all had something written on them. The strange clanking noises were coming from behind several of them. The delicious smells came wafting through the keyholes, and sometimes little jets of colored steam shot out from the cracks underneath. Grandpa Joe and Charlie were half running and half walking to keep up with Mr. Wonka, but they were able to read what is said on quite a few of the doors as they hurried by. Edible mushroom pillows, it said on one. Marshmallow pillows are terrific, shouted Mr. Wonka as he dashed. They'll be they'll be they'll they'll be all the rage when I get them into shops. No time to go in, though. No time to go in. Lickable wallpaper for nurseries. It said on the next door. Lovely stuff. Lickable wallpaper, cried Wonka, rushing past. It has pictures of fruits on it. Bananas, apples, oranges, grapes, pineapples, strawberries, snozberries. Snosberry, said Mike TVs. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt, said Mr. Wonka. The wallpaper has pictures of all these fruits printed on them. And when you lick the picture of the banana, it tastes like a banana. When you lick a strawberry, it tastes like a strawberry. And when you lick a snosberry, it tastes exactly like a snosberry. But what does a snosberry taste like? You're mumbling. You're mumbling again, said Mr. Wonka. Speak louder next time. On we go. Hurry up. Hot ice cream for cold days, it said on the next door. Extremely useful in the winter, said Mr. Wonka, rushing on. Hot ice cream warms you up no end in freezing weather. I also make hot ice cubes for putting in hot drinks. Hot ice cubes make hot drinks hotter. Cows that give chocolate milk, is said on the next door. Ah, my pretty little cows, cried Mr. Wonka. How I love those cows. But why can't we see them? Asked Veruca. Why do we have to rush all past these lovely rooms? We shall stop. We shall stop in time, called out Miss Wonka. Don't be madly impatient. Fizzy lifting drinks, said on the next door. Those are fabulous, cried Mr. Wonka. They fill you up with bubbles, and the bubbles are full of special kind of gas. This gas is so terrific lifting that it lifts you right up from the ground like a balloon. And you go until your head hits the ceiling, and there you stay. But how do you come down? Asked little Charlie. You do a burp, of course, said Mr. Wonka. You do a big, long, rude burp, and up comes the gas and down comes you. But don't th- but don't drink it outdoors. There's no knowing how high up you'll be carried if you do that. I gave I gave some to an old Oompa Loompa once out in the backyard, and he went straight up, and disappeared, out of sight. It was very sad. I never saw him again. Anyways, Ace, he should have he should have burped, said Charlie. Of course he should have burped, said Mr. Wonka. I stood there shouting, "Burp, you silly ass! Burp, you silly ass! Burp! You'll never come down again!" But he didn't, or couldn't, or wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe he was too polite. He must be by the he must be on the moon by now. On the next door, it said square candies that look round. Wait, cried Mr. Wonka, skidding suddenly to a halt. I'm very proud of my square candies that look round. Let's take a peek. Can I get my hat? There we go. Chapter 23. Square candies that look round. Everybody stopped crowded to the door. On the top half of the door was made of glass. Grandpa Joe lifted Charlie up so he could get a better view. And looking in, Charlie saw long tables, and on the tables there was rows of small white square shaped candies. The candies look very like sugar cube lumps, except each of them had a funny little pink face painted on one side. At the end of the table, a number of Oompa Loompas were busy painting more faces on the candies. There you are, cried Mr. Wonka. Square candies that look round. They don't look round to me, said Mike TV. They look square, said Veruca Salt. They look completely square. But they are square, said Mr. Wonka. I never said they weren't. You said they were round, said Ruka Salt. I never said anything of the sort, said Mr. Wonka. I said they looked round. But they don't look round, said Ruka Salt. They look square. They look round, insisted Mr. Wonka. They most certainly do not look round, cried Ruka Salt. Ruka, darling, said Mrs. Salt, pay no attention to Mr. Wonka. He's lying to you. My dear old fish, said Mr. Wonka, go and boil your head. How dare you speak to me like that? Shouted Mrs. Salt. Oh, do shut up, said Mr. Wonka. Now watch this. He took a key from his pocket and unlocked the door, and then flung it open. And suddenly the sound of the door opening. All the rows and rows of little squares looked directly round to see who was coming in. The tiny faces actually turned towards the door and stared at Mr. Wonka. There you are, he cried triumphantly. There, looking round. There's no argument about it. They are square candies that look round. By golly, he's right, said Grandpa Joe. Come on, Mr. Wonka's started off down the corridor. On we go. We mustn't dally. Butterscotch and butter gin, it said on the next door as they passed. Now that sounds a bit more interesting, said Mr. Salt, Ruka's father. Glorious stuff, Mr. Wong, said